Hello, everybody. Welcome to here, the Transatlantic Call-In Show. I'm your host, Dr. Ben, and with me is the wonderful Luxander. And we are here to take your calls on trans issues. If you think that 2026 is going to be the year that transgenderism is eradicated from society, call us because we want to have a conversation with you. The number is down at the bottom of the screen. If you are in the US, you can use 520-619-2288. Or if you are outside of the US or Canada, you can use the web link in the description. Please get your calls in because the lines fill up super fast. Lux, how are you doing this fantabulous 2026 New Year's Day?
Listen, I'm not at all hungover. I mean, maybe a tiny bit, but no more than, would be expected. So I feel like it was good. We had a nice night last night on our little line stream with some, heated debates about deeply important topics, uh, such as farting in front of your partner. I think what we're all learning is that like we're all jealous that we can't date Forrest. He's just that's what we're all learning, I think. um,
Yeah. That was a wild discussion.
It was such a strange yeah. So there's a heated debate. Let us know in your thoughts in the chat there, whether you should fart in front of your partner or not if you've been together for like 15 years. Anyway, so that it was fun. I'm like looking forward to 2026. I feel like I'm hopeful for the future in a way that is unexpected. So we'll see how long it takes for that to get ripped away from me.
Yeah. Well, as you and many people know, this new year brings a very, very big change to my life. Uh, so I am officially separated from the military, so I can now say with my full chest, "Fuck Trump" on this stream, and they can't do anything about my job. So because they've already taken it. Uh, but the military has like kind of limited First Amendment rights on that, so that was very satisfying to say live. Um, but yeah, it's a loss for the trans community. Um, I luckily didn't suffer the same consequences that many other people are. Like I'm still doing okay. I've still got things to look forward to. But a lot of people are going to need some support right now. And that's even outside of people leaving the military. I think there are a lot of people heading into this year with a lot of grief from this past year, a lot of fear for the future, a lot of safety concerns, a lot of financial concerns. And we're a community here for everybody. We're going to continue this fight into 2026. Like, we're not going to stop. So, as exhausting as it is, we are still here.
Still here, still queer. It's all gonna be good. I mean, I hope, We just have to like, spend time with one another in community and like find the joy in those moments because largely all the stuff that's happening at the political level is outside of our control. So like, yeah, it sucks that you got cut loose from the military, but at the same time, like you have lots of new opportunities and there's like restrictions that you don't have anymore. And so we can find the silver lining in the mushroom cloud, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, we do have a poll from. We don't have a poll. It's from
We have
two
a poll
weeks
from
ago.
last week or 2 weeks ago. Yeah,
Was
yeah,
it
yeah.
last?
Because
It was
Two
like
weeks
2
ago.
or
Christmas last
maybe
week.
even 3 weeks ago. TACIS has been interrupted by
Yeah.
holidays.
Hmm. Boo.
Yes. So a while back, oh yeah, because I remember this one. Do you trust the findings of RFK Jr.'s HHS report on trans kids will be rooted in good science? 98% of you said no, and 2% said yes. And I'm really curious about who those 2% are, because RFK Jr., if you've seen anything that he's been doing, there's been minimal science. Not even like this isn't even a debate between good science and bad science. This is science versus not science at this point. Most of his uh, contributions to the HHS have not even been scientific. So, Lux, do you have any additional thoughts on this one?
I don't know that I have any additional thoughts. I mean, it's interesting seeing this from so many different angles because we're involved in trans news on so many different topics. So we had that Oklahoma University letter and the fact that the teacher's assistant has been put on admin leave and or taken off of teaching duties, I think is the most recent. And now she's getting a lawyer. And like, I view that as the same kind of anti intellectualism as what RFK Jr. is doing uh, about, health protections and all this kind of stuff. Like, the fact that that man swam in a creek that is known to have sewage runoff, like,
Yeah.
and that he said out loud, like, "We don't have the proof yet about Tylenol causing autism, but we'll find the proof." Just the fact that these people will use the veneer of any ethics, any secular ethics, really, that people in general or experts regard as like, okay, we care about this kind of evidence, we care about the scientific process. So, and we have this issue with transphobes as well all the time. Listen, transphobes, if you have a study that you think isn't a piece of shit that you want to bring to the table, we will rip it apart for you. But the problem is that I know that you don't care what the study says. Because if you cared what the study says, you would also be willing to look at studies that disagree with you. Like, I specifically look for things that disagree with me on topics like COVID. I'm like 100% COVID recovery after long COVID. Like, I want to know if there are things that would counteract my opinion that like COVID is bad in every situation. Or like, I would like to be told if I'm incorrect about the science on trans youth transitioning, right? Like, if that's causing harm, I want to know about it because I want to reduce harm. And so if you can convince me or us that providing trans care to minors, for example, is harmful, we want to engage with that because we care about changing our minds based on the evidence. People like RFK Jr. do not they it's all post hoc, which is like you have a piece of paper and you have a conclusion and you write the conclusion at the bottom of the paper, like Tylenol causes autism. And then you go to the top of the paper and you write literally anything you need to justify the conclusion rather than starting at the top with a question. Does Tylenol cause autism? And then let's find the research. Let's do the studies. Let's actually look into it because the fact of the matter matters. And I that's the thing that I struggle with the most, Ben, of living in America as a skeptic. I've identified as a skeptic for like 17 years that I do genuinely I'm not immune to bias. I'm not immune to confirmation bias and all this, but I do care and if I find that I'm wrong, I would rather change my rhetoric and change my mind than double down on being wrong. Oh, you muted yourself.
I muted. I
Yeah.
muted. That's funny. No, but this is something that's been bothering me for a while, and like, of course, there's plenty of issues with the physicians, like Dr. Oz, people with the credentials, and I can see where people are misled by people with credentials who are spreading misinformation and not using proper critical thinking and skepticism. However, we're at a point where the credentials aren't even mattering to people anymore because we have RFK Jr. with zero credentials, zero training, like zero knowledge on the fundamentals of science, and people are considering his opinion as equal to that of like any CDC expert. At least I'm referring to the experts at the CDC prior to them being
Yeah.
fired. But it's just such a weird timeline that we're in, and I agree with you. Like, the biggest issue we need to address in this country right now is the ability to vet your sources, be critical of the information you're given, ask questions, um, because I think if more people actually did that, uh, there are a lot of people in this country who are very intelligent, uh, and they could. I'm sure a lot of people could see through this um, if they started questioning it. So that's kind of why we're here in the first place doing the show is hopefully people will call in and we can ask them why they haven't questioned certain things that they believe.
Yeah.
Um,
If you have questions or if you have arguments with us, like that's literally the primary reason that we're here. We want to engage with people who disagree with us or who are questioning, oh, is there a trans agenda? Are we trying to like do this to people or do this to children. Like, I know that we're fucking tired of the trans women in sports debate, but literally I would take that. If somebody has beef, listen, if you've got beef, bring it to the table. I'm not a vegetarian, at least. I can't remember, Ben, if you're a vegetarian, but
I'm
we
not.
will get down with the beef. There we go. We're ready for it.
Yeah. And so we have a new poll for this week that we'll read and then we'll discuss it later on. So today's poll is: will 2026 be a better year for trans rights? Yes or no? So give your thoughts in the chat for this poll, and we'll give you our thoughts later on.
Yes.
In the meantime, would you like to take a caller?
We have one waiting right now, and we've got a
Yep.
couple that are screening. Do we still want to wait for a couple more to screen through and then be choosy, or do you want to just take the one that's waiting?
I think we can try this one. And then we'll see if these other ones come through.
Sounds good.
All right. Let's talk to Billy, they, them from Virginia. Sounds like you have a concern about social presentation, feeling like you're not doing enough. Tell us a bit more about your situation and how we can help.
A tiny back, because I'm a senior person who came out when I was 53 years old, and I am extremely comfortable with my own identity, but with what's going on socially, I don't feel like I'm doing enough in the community. I don't feel because I haven't done any medical transition. You know, I don't know. I'm just really confused right now. Hello?
Sure. Sorry, there's a little bit of a delay, and we were looking at each other like who's about to speak real quick. Yeah, there's a lot of difficulty in coming out initially, and in a political environment like this. Like, I'm disabled and I'm really trying really hard to get my health back to a place where I feel like I can participate more, where I could potentially go to a march or do something like that. So first of all, just like being willing to recognize where your strengths are and where you can contribute. Like, I have a platform. I speak for trans people. You know, I advocate, I educate myself, and I pass that along. So maybe it's possible that for a person like me, or for artists or other folks like that, that being on the front lines is not a reasonable expectation. So first of all, widening your scope on what it means to contribute to the community, and you'll find if you are able to participate in person more, people are less concerned about whether you're medically transitioned. There's a lot of bullshit online that doesn't really happen in person. And so if you want to, if you have the ability, go to a local LGBTQ resource center. Or, if you have aged out, like I know that around my area, there is specifically a youth program that I can't help, or like I can't get the benefits of, but I could volunteer. So like if you have a clear criminal background check, you can probably volunteer, and that could mean just like greeting people as they come in the door, or you know, taking out the trash, or other simple tasks like that. So, yeah, I would say there are loads of ways for you to contribute, and even if you're very early on, people are generally pretty welcoming, and they will help you find like your place within that space, whatever it is that you decide to do.
Well, we do. My community does have a LGBTQ like drop-in center here, but and I realize a lot of this is just my own hang-ups, but I don't, because like I said, I don't I haven't done any like medical transition. I don't take HRT. I don't do any of that. I am just very comfortable. I've been out for about 7 or 8 years, and I am very comfortable with who I am as a person. I'm just not comfortable in my community as who I am, if that makes any sense. I mean, even at the drop-in center, I mean, part of it is that it's managed by a person who is extremely religious, and I'm an atheist. And part of it is that, like I said, there have been. I went to a trans support group for a short time, and I was the only non-binary person there who wasn't medically transitioning, so I felt really awkward. Does that make any sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Go ahead,
sounds like that could be it can make you feel like you're alienated from the group because you haven't undergone certain steps that others in the community have. But I do think you were hitting the nail on the head when it was kind of something internal to you. I don't think the rest of the community necessarily feels that way. And if you look at it from the outside, if you saw somebody else who is in your shoes, would you think that they're any less non-binary or any less trans or any less deserving of being in that community?
Of course not.
Right.
Of course
So
not.
that's something that it's easy to hate on yourself because I mean that's natural for all of us to do. But I think you need to take a step back and remind yourself that like you should be treating yourself the same way you would treat somebody else in that space. And if that other person belongs in that space, then you belong in that space. So I think like try to separate that out for yourself. And if you need some extra help on that, I do think continuing in with those support groups will be helpful for you. Even voicing some of that at the support groups, some people might be able to empathize with you there. A lot of people in that group may have come from a similar situation. Maybe they weren't able to get HRT at the beginning or didn't choose to at the beginning, and maybe they went through a similar experience. So I think kind of focus on that. And like if you
Yeah,
need
I
an
really
extra
do.
professional level,
I
if it is
really
bothering
do
you
do
so
a lot
much,
of
yeah.
Self-abuse as far as the imposter syndrome stuff goes. And I guess the real reason I called is looking for suggestions on how to get out of that, how to get out of the mental state of feeling like I don't belong, that I'm an imposter.
I'm bringing out the DBT book because I think that this falls into the category of like shame, and we're trying to ascertain whether shame is a proportional and accurate response in the situation. So let's look at shame. Shame is justified sometimes. And so part of what we have to do is decide whether shame is justified. So it could be justified if you will for certain be rejected by a very important person or group if the characteristics of yourself or your behavior are made public. So this is where the fear is like, okay, if I go to the LGBTQ center, well, I'm non-passing or I haven't done HRT, so I'm going to be rejected by this important social group. But we know from our experience of being in the trans community and my experience as a non-binary person that like that isn't necessarily the case. Like the rejection is not guaranteed in that situation. Maybe there might be, there are trans medicalists in the community, but they don't really show up to in-person stuff. They're fucking losers who bitch online, and that's it. So here's what we do when we are trying to act opposite to the emotion, because the more you cave to the shame, the more you're going to feel it in the future, right? Every time you go, oh, no, never mind, I'm not going to go to the thing that I said I was going to go to because actually I'm worried that I'll get rejected. You're just increasing the likelihood in the future. So what do? We make public those characteristics or behaviors that you're worried are going to cause people to reject you. So showing up proudly as a person who hasn't done HRT, repeating the behavior without hiding from people who ultimately are not rejecting you. The third one on here doesn't really count. So yeah, basically like opposite action in emotion regulation is like, yes, you're gonna feel resistance to doing the thing. Like it's like social anxiety. If you feel resistance to going to the party, that resistance is only gonna go away if there are like a few times where you are like, oh, I don't want to go to the party, but you go anyway, even if it's just for 10 minutes, right? You decide I'm going to do a 10-minute commitment, and then you end up staying for 3 hours and having a great time, because you have to actually teach your brain that bad things won't happen. So I would recommend doing something low stakes, like going to a support group, maybe even specifically for non-binary people, because I know that exists near where I live. And just going and talking to people, and here, low commitment, go one time and don't talk. It's like AA. You can go and not say anything. Like they don't force you to participate. You could just be like, I'm just here to learn, and like I'm queer and I'm whatever, but you don't have to like put yourself in the fore. And so that's the low commitment first time. Just go there once and then see how it turns out, and in all likelihood it'll be totally fine. And then you can go 2 or 3 more times, and by then you are like getting to know which of the people in the group you like. So maybe you decide to go out with one of those people and play board games or something, I don't know. So you just kind of have to work up to it incrementally and not beat yourself up for the fact that it's going to be kind of hard.
Yeah, I really appreciate this, Lux. And can I ask you, did you have a period of time where you dealt with a lot of this imposter syndrome stuff?
I think it's
most
kind of
people do.
unavoidable as a non-binary person
Yeah.
in particular. Yeah, like I think all trans people go through a phase where like, am I really trans? I don't know. Is somebody going to be mad at me? But I do think as a non-binary people, because there's not a prescribed social role for us to transition into, and I definitely used to try much harder to look masculine because I was assigned female at birth, and I felt like as a trans person I needed to do that. And it honestly didn't look good on me, and it didn't really work for me. And like now that I'm much further in my transition, I'm more comfortable with being feminine, because I'm like, I don't really need external validation. I just don't care. There are definitely people who are like, you don't count. You need to stop speaking for trans people. And I'm like, don't talk to me. Like, I'm like, I don't care about your opinion, dude. I've been in this for 15 years. I've been through all these different phases. I think just at a certain point, if you lean into your self-confidence, lean into the fact that you are going to be what you are regardless of who's around you. Like, I'm non-binary regardless of the social space. I'm non-binary regardless of how I dress or what I look like. People are going to think what they're going to think about me, and it's not my responsibility to perform androgyny for them, for example. Or like, it's not I don't have to perform a masculine role that doesn't really fit me. Like, just because I'm trans masculine and that's the only way for me to fit in, turns out that's not the only way for you to fit in. And people are totally willing to meet you where you are. It just takes like repeated exposure to get to that point.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that was really hard for me too is when I first came out, like 7 years ago, I did go and see a transitioning doctor, and I had a horrible experience with them. After I had explained that I was non-binary and this, that, and the reason I went was that I was hoping that they would, because I am very masculine. I was assigned male at birth, and I am a very masculine looking person. I have a very deep voice, whatever. I was just hoping there was some way that the doctor could help with softening some of those features so that I didn't seem so masculine. And what the doctor said to me was that after I had taken, because I actually did start HIT at the time, and he said that after a month or two of me taking that I could come back in and we could talk about him helping me transition into a woman, which, well, it's like he didn't listen to a thing I said, and I just never went back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and that can happen. And so I hope that you don't, like, whatever medical decisions you make, I hope that you end up making them because they're the right things for you. Definitely, I mean, don't go back to that specific person, but I hope that that experience doesn't make you think that you shouldn't go through with medical transition or you shouldn't try again, find somebody else. Um, like, there's definitely valid reasons to not go through with it. There are valid reasons to go through with it. And I'm sorry you had that experience. I hope maybe if you're interested in that in the future that you are able to find somebody else that can do a better job for you.
I bet
Any
somebody at the
other,
LGBT
Actually,
center
he's
can
the
tell
only
you.
transition doctor in my city,
well,
which
I'm-
is
look into
unfortunate.
telehealth. Look into telehealth. I think that might be a good option for you because they operate on a state by state basis, and not just in your city. But we do kind of need to wrap up this call. I know we got through some good content here. Do you have any kind of last things you want to leave us with?
No, I just appreciate, both of you talking to me through this, because it has been an emotional issue for me, and just listening to you guys and taking in your suggestions. Hopefully I can work my way out of this difficulty that I'm having right now.
Yeah. Someone at the LGBT center will probably know of another doctor that you can go to. So
Yep.
I really think that put a couple eggs in that basket and see how things shake out at the LGBT center.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
And
Thanks,
have a
Billy.
good day.
Have a great,
Happy New
have a
Year,
great rest of
guys.
your day.
Happy New Year.
All right. I kind of want to jump right into this next call because I don't
Let's.
want to lose them. But let's talk to Joe, him from Tennessee. Sounds like you want to play devil's advocate, in that people who disagree with us on trans issues aren't necessarily bad people. If this will work, there we go.
Hello?
Joe, you are
Hello.
live. Tell us a bit about your position before we get into this.
Well, first off, I guess let me say forgive me if it isn't. I just kind of called on a whim, so I haven't organized my thoughts perhaps as well as I should have. But I think overall, just from my perspective, is that I work sort of in a factory. I'm like a blue-collar person. I'd moved here, I don't know, 5-10 years ago or so. And so it's a little bit of a shock sort of getting used to people with different beliefs than I generally have or whatever. And so I don't know. I sort of feel even the way that this is framed. I don't know if it's YouTube or whatever, but it says like I stepped away from my computer, so there's no feedback. But it like basically says you guys are you people versus bigots. And so even that's sort of a negative framing. And I think the overall problem and something that has hindered the trans movement maybe is that that's sort of this all come about for just like 10 or 15 years ago, and all of a sudden people are sort of being asked to completely change their beliefs, and that if they don't change those beliefs, then they're demonized in a way. And I understand where that demonization or frustration comes from, but I just don't think that's necessarily fair. Like I said, I work with people. I work with a lot of people who have a lot of different views than me, but intrinsically, I think most people have value systems, and they try to follow those value systems.
Joe,
and so I don't think it's fair to.
First of
yeah,
all,
sorry, I'm rambling. Go ahead.
First of all, trans people have, like, this isn't a new issue. This hasn't just come up in the past 10 to 15 years. It's
Oh,
been
of course
more
not.
talked
Of course
about
not.
in the recent history, but this is not new. Trans people are not new,
Of
and fight goes way back into the past. But
course.
there's
But
kind of an issue if
does
you
your
think
average
that all
person understand
there's
that?
an
Or
issue, but
what
Joe,
I mean is that it came.
issue
Go,
there's an issue
go ahead.
here
I'm sorry.
with thinking that all opinions are like equally worth attention and worth giving the benefit of the doubt to. There are
Sure.
opinions like favorite ice cream flavor, which okay, we can have whatever discussion on if you like chocolate or vanilla. That's an opinion, right? Whether or not a human
Mhm.
is worth having rights is not an opinion that you can just get away with, right? Like if I came on the show and said that
But that's
slavery
not
was
what I said.
okay, that's not an opinion that
That's not
like
what I
that
said.
opinion, even if I'm a good person otherwise, that opinion is a bigoted opinion. And that is a reflection of the way I see the world, the way I see other people, and the way that I act in the world. So, sure, people can disagree on a lot of things, but disagreements of whether or not trans people are like whether or not trans women are women or trans men are men, whether or not trans people should get health care, all of that is like the dehumanization, like you were kind of getting at, is a big
Sure.
problem. And that, if we're going to go with what does it mean to be a bigot,
But can we
that's kind of
acknowledge
the
that you
big
just
sticking point.
can we acknowledge that you
Well,
just said you
Joe,
just listed?
what makes somebody a bigot really is that dehumanization piece, right? So if your perspective includes that piece of making another person seem less human, that is inherently bigoted. So
Okay,
that's kind of where
if
we
I could
get
just
this
jump in
approach.
because you're saying a lot of different things,
Yeah.
and so it's going to be hard for me to address those. I want to address things that you say, and so if you keep listing things off, it'll be difficult to address that. So it would seem to me that sort of in your list of things, you sort of listed things with different qualities. So for instance, if I say that any person, trans person, person based on color, person on anything, shouldn't have rights, that's one thing, and that is definitely a moral issue, and I don't support that at all. In fact, I think that trans people should be a protected class, and I agree with those sorts of things. However, to then go on and sort of say that with the same sort of thing as saying a trans woman is a woman, which, by the way, I agree with. I would agree with that sentiment. That's something entirely different because that's just a matter of sorry, I'm not much of a public speaker. That's just a matter of opinion, right? Because and as far as I see it, and what changed my mind is that
No, it is not.
up until if you
That
keep
is
cutting
not
me
a
off
matter.
before,
That is not just a
before I
matter of
can fully say
opinion.
what I'm saying, and then you
No,
don't address what I say. You make a straw man,
the
and it's
core of
difficult
your
for me
argument is
to.
right here. That because number one, you are not believing what the other person is telling you. You are saying that that person is not trustworthy in what their identity is, and that is a big
That's not what I'm
problem.
saying, though.
Another thing
But
is
that's not what
the
I'm saying.
fact that if you do not agree,
That's not
like
what I'm saying.
the disagreement itself isn't the end of this issue, right? The disagreement leads to the revoking of rights of these people. So if you don't
It
accept that
can
trans women
definitely.
are
It can
women,
definitely.
that then
However,
leads to
but
no,
you at least acknowledge that those are two
So
separate things.
what consequences come from not believing somebody about their gender or not believing that trans women are women? Right? You have loss of health care. You have loss of ability to use the bathroom in public. You have actual loss of human rights in that. So it's not just the agree to disagree thing, because those opinions have weight and people vote on those opinions. People do make decisions on that. People harass people in the bathrooms. People, right? This is an issue that goes beyond just an individual opinion. I want to let Lux
Sure,
get in here
but with
as well.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
It's like I
Yeah.
don't get to finish what I'm saying, and then you guys cut me off, and then sort of reply to things that I didn't say, and so it's
Well,
sort of
to be fair, Joe, you are
frustrating
not
on my end. But please,
representing
no,
your
go
own
ahead.
opinions
Go ahead.
here. To be fair, Joe, what you have done is said, I'm going to play devil's advocate. So I don't personally feel like you should be taking offense that your thoughts are being interrupted, because ostensibly you're not representing your own opinion. You're just saying, well, people I know
No, I'm
believe
representing
such
my
and
own
such.
opinion. Like these things that I'm saying right now to you guys is my opinion. Like it's my opinion that up until relatively recently, when when people were coming up with the definition of man or woman, it was based upon specific criteria, which was the result of the available technology at the time. As I was going to say, which caused what caused my sort of, I always sort of said, okay, you know, that's fine. People should be able to deal with whatever they want. But scientifically speaking, as science gets better, and we can now look at brain scans and stuff like that, and show actual qualitative validity to the trans arguments, that's sort of what changed my view. But when I'm talking about the overall conversation, or the way that, for instance, it's you guys versus, or you people versus bigots, or whatever, these are my actual opinions. I'm not playing devil's advocate on how I think the overall conversation is. What I'm saying is that I don't believe that anybody who disagrees with the idea that a trans woman is a woman is necessarily evil. Now, it does stand to reason that those things that you said will follow in some cases, but it also doesn't necessarily follow. Like, somebody can believe that, for instance, a trans woman isn't actually a woman by their definition, but still believe that that person has human rights because they're a human. So that's why I'm saying those are two distinct things, where one is actually go ahead. I'm sorry, I talked for a while.
I will say that's not my personal experience, and I am speaking from an anecdotal experience there. But like, the thing is that I really don't see how a person's belief that a trans woman is not a woman can't bleed out is like never going to bleed out in any other ways, right? Like, that those private beliefs are going to be shared with their children. And so now I have to deal with a generation of children who need to be re-educated. And that those people are going to be like, you know, potentially less
why do you think
kind.
that those people have those beliefs?
Oh,
Like,
Joe.
why do you think
Oh,
that those
Joe.
people...
You know how you just
Go
said
ahead.
that you're
Go
having a
ahead.
hard time not getting your statements out? Girl, I'm not going to deal well with being interrupted because this is my first time participating in the conversation. So it is the case that those beliefs...
I'd like to point out that my stated
excuse
pronouns
me.
were he, him.
I'm so
And you
sorry.
apparently
I'm so
just
sorry. I was still in the middle of
purposely misgendered me,
talking.
which I don't really care.
We're going to
But
have to use the mute button with
go
you
ahead.
because apparently you are not respectful enough to give me fucking 2 minutes, 2 uninterrupted minutes. I gave you your uninterrupted 2 minutes. I jumped in to kind of be like, hey, here, you know, okay, so we're just going to have a little mute moment here. Thank you so much for calling in. So the thing is that whether it's in a small way or in a large way, the belief, the intrinsic belief that a trans woman is not a woman, first of all, it belies a complete misunderstanding of what it is to be a woman. It is ascientific or anti-scientific, perhaps. And it, no matter what, there is going to be some kind of fallout from that belief. Even if it's like, oh, I'm totally polite to trans people, but I did vote for Trump. Like, we're seeing that like somebody doesn't have to profess hatred toward a group in order for their thoughts and actions to have a material impact in the world, which is the point that I was trying to get out. And I'm finished now.
Hello? I guess that
you're back.
means that I'm unmuted.
Yeah, it sure does.
Okay. All right. Yeah, like I said, I understand where you're coming from, but again, my overall point, I guess, is that, and let me say this again, I understand that trans people have always existed, and they've always been a part of existence or whatever, but the idea of trans people up until 10 or 15 years ago has basically been negative stereotypes in the media and stuff like that. That's what their perceptions were, and it wasn't really the knowledge about how it works or whatever wasn't as ubiquitous. And so I guess what I'm saying is it wasn't until 15 years ago. And so up until that point, for the majority of people, because they were ignorant to the existence of trans people in a real way, they have their belief systems. And so I think part of the problem of why things have gone sideways in terms of trans rights, because again, I'm not against trans rights, I support trans rights. I think part of it is that there was sort of this switch in history where at some point it was like, if people were like trans women are women and you were like, well, maybe not. And then all of a sudden you were labeled a bigot and all those things. And I understand why somebody from your, go ahead.
Does ignorance excuse bad behavior?
I don't know. That's sort of a overly simplistic question.
No, but so if
really
somebody,
so.
I mean, we could come up with
if somebody
with examples
didn't know,
so either way.
If somebody didn't know, like let's say somebody didn't know the actual history of slavery in the U.S.
Sure.
If they made decisions based on Black people, based on their ignorance, they'd still be making bad decisions, right? If they still did racist things because they didn't know any better, does that make the action any less harmful?
Well, those are two separate things. It being excused and it making less horrible. It would, I don't know if it would necessarily excuse it. It would certainly explain it, and it would put it within a certain context. From our
Right, and it also
historical
doesn't
perspective,
take
looking
away the
back on
fact
that,
that
no, of
they
course not.
have
I would say
it
no.
also
Go ahead.
but also the ignorance does not take away from the fact that they have those biases within them, they have that prejudice within them, and they are making decisions based on that.
Okay. Okay. Maybe. I think if we could take a step back and just in terms of practicality and the way that people sort of operate within their own belief systems, do you think that it is the most pragmatic way forward to when people express questioning in terms of having, again, because this was like this conversation only entered the mainstream like 15 years ago, which is almost nothing in terms of timelines. And so to expect people to completely reverse a sort of central belief, and I wish it wasn't. I wish there was a world where just gender didn't exist at all, and like anybody could wear whatever
So
they
Joe,
want, and that'd be cool.
if somebody,
Go
so
ahead.
if you teach somebody that an action that they're doing is harmful and they don't change that action, why should we consider them like good people at that point? Like they're still doing the
Do
bad
you think
thing.
that
They
you have?
learned that the thing was wrong and they still decided to do it anyway, or for some whatever reason they have enough bias to not change their mind on the issue. I don't need to give them a pass for that. They are still
But again, it's not.
acting
It's
in
not
a
if we're
bigoted
arguing whether
fashion.
or not a tree. I'm sorry. Go ahead. It's not
Well,
whether or not we're arguing whether or not a tree exists. We're arguing whether or not the distinctions between what makes a tree and a bush. Again, and so I don't know. I
Joe,
think it's.
so
I don't
do
think that
you
you have truly.
believe?
I don't think that you
So
have truly
I
tried
just
to
want to jump
understand
in.
the other side.
I just want to
Go
jump
ahead.
in right
Go
here,
ahead.
Joe. So because we're
Yeah.
dealing
Go
with
ahead.
human beings, do you think that there might be some aspect of like the fact of a thing about you as being up for debate inherently degrades your dignity? Do you think maybe that the idea of having a debate about whether trans people are intrinsically this or that, does that feel like a dignified way to treat a person? Or does it maybe seem like the simple fact that we're entertaining this and we're treating this like a legitimate debate could be in and of itself dehumanizing and degrading?
Yeah, but okay. From the perspective of somebody who says that, for instance, a trans woman is not a woman, again, a belief that I don't and wouldn't profess to. They're sort of taking the position that they're arguing from it, and this tends to fall apart a little bit at the edges. But they tend to take the argument that they're coming from in a relatively objective perception, which again, as the science gets better and better, tends to get whittled away more and more as we become to understand the brain better, which I think is good because I think stuff
Well,
like that is what will bring more people over to the side of acceptance. But
Joe,
trans
the argument about it
inherently is
being
a
pragmatic
subjective thing,
argue
and
this
so you're
way.
trying to measure a subjective experience against what they're judging it
No,
by
no,
objectively,
Joe,
right? Is
Joe,
that not correct?
Joe, the fact that they are unwilling to be more educated on the subject matter, especially now that we do have this data out there, like they do not deserve a pass for that. Sure, like you can make mistakes and like everyone's going to, but once you have that conversation and you have the ability to go do the research and become more informed, and either you choose not to or you dig your heels in and keep believing your
But is it
inaccurate
a
position,
conversation or is it a
like
lecture?
that's still
Is it a conversation or is it a lecture? Like even right
If
now,
you
the tone
don't
that you're
know
saying that is,
anything,
if we have
if you don't
educated
know
you and
anything
you have
about the
not changed your
subject,
opinion, then you're, I don't know. That's not a conversation,
if
is it?
somebody comes in, listen, because Joe, what you're like arguing from like, well, if these people don't know, then their questions are legitimate and everything. Like
But it's not a
in that
matter if they
case,
don't know.
oh
It's
my
a
God,
matter of
Joe,
their
oh my God,
definition. They
Joe,
have
hold on
different
one second. Can
definitional
you give me
standards.
one quick second
Go
here?
ahead. Go ahead.
The thing
Go ahead.
is
I'm
that
sorry.
I know more about transness. And so if someone is coming to me and they're presenting their opinion as though it has the same weight as my 15 years of research and personal experience, then you are displaying a level of hubris. You really should be coming to me humbly to be educated. Not you specifically, I'm just saying in general. The problem is that people come in
the
and they're
irony
like,
of that
well, I
statement,
know
but
better.
go ahead.
And it's like, so yes, if you are coming to me and you need to be educated, then maybe it will come across like a lecture because your opinion doesn't hold as much weight as mine.
I mean, I guess in a sense, yes, but also in a sense, like, sorry, I'm trying to think of an analogy off the top of my head, but it don't seem like it's going to work. Again, we're not discussing whether or not a tree exists or something like that. Like transness exists in a state of psychology, whereas sex, male and female sex, exists in a state of physiology. And so for the average person, it's easier to look at physiology
That's
to
like
create a
not
definition.
true.
It's not true. And
Whereas,
also, this is again, you are just ignoring Lux's entire point just there,
I apologize.
because
Please,
right,
please,
if we're
I'll
talking
respond,
about
please. Go
as-
ahead.
right,
Go ahead and
should
restate it for a
I,
dummy like me.
Joe, should I, as a physician, as a doctor who has given gender affirming care, who is up to date on the science, who has decades of education on this, why should I consider somebody else's uninformed opinion equally valid and equally objective? Because you're saying that they're
Well, I
coming
mean,
from an
go
objective
ahead.
position, or they feel like they have an objective position. I don't care what they feel like their position is. They are wrong. If they are wrong in their position, why do I have to give them equal weight, especially if it is an uninformed wrong opinion? I get, sure, you can play the PR game and make them feel better about
Well,
themselves,
what is it?
but
What is it
in
an
doing
opinion
that, what
on?
are you
What
doing
is
to the
it an
trans
opinion on?
community? What there are times when you like it's I would rather offend people and not have not have them on my side if they're going to misrepresent the whole position and possibly cause further harm down the line, right? So I don't want to coddle people all the time. I do want to have discussions, but sometimes we need to have harder hitting discussions, and we need to be a bit more aggressive on this, because the more passive we are, oftentimes the more we get steamrolled, and that is a lot of the issues that's happening, right? Like we spend a lot of time, I think, being passive,
I agree. I agree.
and we
And it's
need
harder
to be
than
more
ever now.
aggressive on
It's
these
harder than
issues.
ever now to remain sort of non-antagonistic, because the other side is so antagonistic. But if I could posit a question to the both of you, let's create a group of people who we call people who disagree with the trans idea, or the idea rather, that a trans woman is a woman or a trans man is a man. Let's create this group of people. How many people within that group, as a percentage, do you think are hardcore, just wake up hating trans people and stuff like that? And how much of that group is people who are maybe not consciously open to changing their mind, but are capable of changing their mind under the right circumstances? And so, and I think it's important to recognize that there is two separate groups of people within that. And so, in going all out, you might be turning away other people who aren't part of this hateful group, which you shouldn't engage with. And I think that's sort of why society has become so split right now, and why it is so everybody's in fisticuffs mode, because everybody
can I
feels that
jump
they have
in
to be.
here?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So the thing is that we host this show specifically to talk about this issue with people in all different places. And it's not just this show. We also have, like, Forrest talks about this, Javon talks about this, Jimmy talks about this. We talk about this on our other shows as well.
Yeah, I like you guys' shows. I watch your guys' shows, or your people's shows. I'm sorry, I say dude and man, and you guys, is there a non-gendered
nobody cares
word that I can use? Okay,
nobody
awesome.
cares right now.
If
you can just say
my
guys.
mom, dude, it's much to her chagrin, so I do apologize.
Fine. It's cool. I'm gay, and I'm going to say girl at you, and I hope that you also take it like it's dude, because it's functionally the same. So the thing is, Joe,
that works. We got to deal.
We are willing to talk to people at all different parts of their belief system. And my personal opinion, because we've been having this debate in the community as an atheist for years, like, oh, Matt Dillahunty, he yells at people, he goes too hard, he's hurting the movement. And then you've got people like Josie Caballero who are, like, super nice and super gentle. And, sometimes it's like, oh, is that the effective way? Or, like, Arden and I have a discussion where it's like, we try to bring facts, and then, like, Josie tries to bring her personal, emotional journey to this conversation. And which way is the best way? Everybody needs something different at a different point in their process. So there might be times if you have a harmful belief where somebody needs to tell you that's fucked up of you to say. And, like, that's not a kind thing to say. Actually, it's kind of kind in the way that it's like, you really need somebody to jog your brain here a little bit. And then there's going to be times where you need the soft, gentle, coercion into like, here, let me bring you in. Let me tell you about my personal experience. There are times when you share that personal experience and the person starts using it against you in a way that's harmful, right? So like all of these things require delicacy. And honestly, like the title of the show is there to get people to call in, partially because people believe they are good people, even if they are anti-trans. And it's like, you can have good intentions and think that you're a good person. Like, I'm sure that there's tons of people out there who are like, I genuinely want the best for my daughter, and therefore I'm freaked out by the idea of a masculine looking person in the bathroom, right? In their heart, they want to
I
protect their
think that that's
child.
the
And like, I
majority from
respect
my
that.
experience.
That
But go
doesn't make
ahead,
it
go ahead.
less harmful. That doesn't make it less harmful to society and to trans people to let that ignorance just go. And so sometimes I'm going to need to be confronting with that person.
And Joe, I wanna say something real quick before you
Go ahead.
jump back in.
Sure.
Like there is
Sure.
also something harmful that you are doing at the moment in that I'm going to assume that you are a cisgender man. Am I correct in that?
Sure.
There's kind of an issue when somebody outside of a minority community comes in and tells that minority how they're supposed to fight for themselves. Right? Like we're the ones in the fight. We're the ones dealing with this day in and day out. You are not really part of this, and it's kind of
Am I not a
uh,
member of society? Do I not have some investment
being a member
in
of
a
society
society? Which
doesn't mean you are.
go ahead.
It is kind of it's poor etiquette in a way to try to tell to tell a minority how to advocate for themselves. Like it would be really in really poor taste if I went up to black non-believers and said, "You're not advocating for yourselves well enough. Here's what you should do instead." Right? Like that's really gross. It's
Oh, I
not
should hope that
doing
you would be more
it's
inclined
not
to address
taking
my
into account.
points rather than just try and dismiss me because of who I exist as a person in this world. I mean,
No, Joe,
Okay,
surely
but
that's not the
anybody
issue.
from
that's
any
not the
That's not the
point.
issue
background
I'm getting to.
can have insights on almost any
You are
topic,
telling
right?
us how trans people should be advocated for. And you are not trans, and you think you know more about what trans people need than what trans people are
That's
telling
not
you.
what I said at
And
all.
that is a problem.
That's not
And
what I
that is
said at all.
something that you need to get over. And
But
that
that's
is something that
what you're bringing to the table, Joe, are criticisms of our tactics. Like whether you've said something specific in the way that Ben just phrased it or not, what you are bringing to us is a criticism of our tactics. And in particular, you are criticizing the tone of our tactics. In activist spaces, we call this tone policing, and it's weaponized against minority groups all the time. Like if you've ever seen
Oh
someone
my
go
heavens.
like, if you've ever seen someone go, oh, these black people are too angry, and the issue that they're angry about is getting literally fucking executed in the streets. Like the idea that like you are being too angry or too hysterical and therefore no one's going to listen to you. First of all, we already think about that. We already know. We're already aware of this dynamic. And so it's in poor taste, as Ben put it, to come into a community, which you have entered our space here, to tell us that we are advocating wrongly. If there is some material like thing that we are disagreeing on, like if we are materially incorrect about something, I think that's a different criticism than just saying like, oh, you've labeled people who disagree with you bigots, and that's what's losing this fight. Like, again, we all need different things at different points. So sometimes people need to be told, hey, you're bigoted. Also, want to say that you used the word evil earlier. We have never asserted that people who are not fully on board with trans rights are evil. And calling someone's bigotry out is not necessarily calling them evil. Now, I understand that people have a difficult time taking that criticism without getting really defensive, but addressing that defensiveness is part of the point of the show. Like to be able to say, hey, that was racist, and not have that person be like, oh my God, I could never be racist, da 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 da. Because the problem is, if you think you are not a racist, then you also think none of your actions could be racist. Like you could like touching a black person's hair without their permission, you might think is a harmless thing, but they feel like you're intruding on my body and acting like you own me when I did not give you permission, right? So you can do something in a well-meaning way, and still that action is racist. And so you might not think, oh, I hate trans people and I don't want them to have access to public spaces. But if you do deep down believe trans women are not really women, they're just kind of pretending, and we are being nice by pretending for them, like that is still a harmful belief. And I still want to directly address that belief. Of course, I do care mostly about behavior, but how do I know that that behavior doesn't result in you calling the cops on a trans woman in the bathroom, or more likely, a masculine cis woman in the bathroom? Like, how do I know that that belief isn't going to fester and become something terrible? That your kid is going to come out as trans later, and you're going to kick out their house because of this belief. Oh, my internet has fizzed out.
Hello?
Sorry.
Sorry, Lex is having
Okay.
a
Wait,
I
tech
saw
issues.
it. I
Can I
saw it.
respond to all
My
that?
tech
That's
issue.
kind of a lot
Yeah,
thrown
yeah,
at me.
please.
But if you want to
Please.
keep going, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. My tech issues arose, so I'll give you the response.
Yeah, sure. No problem. Yeah, so I guess kind of a lot thrown at me to see if I can remember most of it. Yeah, I guess I could understand how you might say, hey, as a cis white dude, there, you know, don't tell me how to speak and for whom to speak to or whatever. And I understand that philosophy, but I also believe that while there is some truth in that, there's also truth in the fact that sometimes outside perspectives can be useful in trying to come to a better understanding of a situation. And I also believe that yeah, nobody's beliefs should be discounted by such simple things as race and sex. However, with that said, I would like to say that overall, I'm not commenting on like, oh, stop calling these people evil or bad. I know that I did say evil. That just kind of slipped out. Like I said, I don't talk to people in this fashion normally. But what it's more about is sort of the overall effectiveness of this argument. It would seem to me that the argument consists of people on your side doing shows like this where you say things to people, sometimes mean things, or say angrily state your opinions, which is fine. And then people like me watch this show because, like I said, I work with a bunch of right wingers, and so sometimes I need that outlet of having them had the smackdown put upon them. And then there's people on the right side who go to whatever the equivalent is there. I don't hang out in the manosphere, so I probably couldn't name anybody. I'm sure there's an equivalent out there where people have on trans guests, and then they lay the smack it down upon them. And overall, it's overall more decisive. So again, I'm not going to tell you how to spread your message, but I can say, again, the reason I call this is because I do interact with these people on a daily basis, and I don't believe them to be bad. And I think that by calling them bad or labeling them bigots and all these things, when at worst, I think most of them are just misunderstood. I will say, I don't want to ramble, but I will say that anecdotally, most people have come over to the side, and this was the case for me. I'm not ashamed to admit that, like 20 years ago, I was transphobe, you know, and that what changed that is unknowingly actually meeting a trans person, and they were really cool. And then after a couple months, they were like, "I'm trans," and I'm like, "Wow." Mine instantly changed. And I think that's what's most effective is when people actually interact with people in positive manners. That's what ultimately has changed people's minds. The number of people
Joe,
I've
do
talked
you
to
think
who were
this is
go
this
ahead,
is
go ahead.
again a problem? This is again a problem because you again are trying to give us advice on how to advocate for ourselves when you don't know the depth of the efforts that the whole community is doing, right? Like this show is one piece of activism, right? And this
Sure.
is for a very specific purpose. Like Lux was saying, there are some people who need this particular method of engaging with a topic. What you're saying is also true, and we do that in our everyday lives. There are people that we interact with that don't know that we're trans, and maybe we have one of those moments where they didn't know and they find out and now they're on our side. But to imply that because we have more aggressive discussions means that we aren't doing those other things is a flaw with your own reasoning, and again
I didn't imply
demonstrates
that
that
at
you're
all, though.
trying to give
But
us
I didn't
advice.
imply that at
But
all.
it
I was
again
speaking specifically to this
tells me that
show and
you're
to shows like it.
Joe, stop. No, it tells me again that you're trying to give us advice on a topic that you are not well versed enough in, and it kind of sounds like, you know, the concept of mansplaining.
Oh my heavens! At first, yeah, I
Yeah, so
understand
it
you.
sounds like
Is that
this
the
is a
one where you
lot
sit
like
down with your
it's
legs
like
too wide on the subway, or is that the other one?
That's
no, mansplaining
mansplaining.
I get all the things that I'm
Joe,
not supposed to be mixed up in my head
no,
sometimes. It's a bit much to keep track of.
mansplaining is the concept of when you or when a man explains something to a woman, like dumbs it down for her, when she probably knows more about that particular thing than he does. And so it seems very condescending. It kind of makes
I'm not
the other
condescending
person
to you at
feel
all,
like,
and I'm sorry if it comes off that way.
no, that,
It's surely not
and I
my
get that
intent.
maybe you're not intending that, but that's how this comes across. It sounds like you want to seem like you know more about this than we do, and you're missing key details. You're missing the fact that what you're saying is good activism is already being done. We are doing that as well. This is not a a but or like an or. This is a yes and. Like we are doing this activism, and we're also doing these other things. And Lux has a thought to jump in with.
Yeah. Because here's the thing,
Go
Joe.
ahead.
I guess maybe this is not apparent by my appearance and stuff, but like me and my family also have a blue collar background. My husband has been a flooring installer for like 10 years. And that involves working in environments where there's construction. I trained to be an electrician, so I worked in construction as well. And my just like anecdotally, my husband, there was a guy who he used to work with, because we've moved across the country now, who they had
Oh, that's nice.
they had a very butting heads relationship politically, specifically politically, they were not getting along well at work. And that
Ooh, it
ended
could
up
be
being
difficult.
Joe,
Go
that
ahead.
ended up being my husband's closest work friend by the time he quit. They, in fact, still text that, like, we live 2,000 miles away. And so I really just do think maybe it's part of your personal experience that is guiding your judgment on this topic. But like, we like
I would imagine.
literally the person that like my husband used to fight with at work over this guy's support of Trump and stuff like that has softened and has crossed over on several issues and is now like, I appreciate you. And like my husband, defends the fact that he's married to a trans person in his blue collar work environment. So it is the case that sometimes being confrontational can be effective. I am not trying to say that we should always be confrontational. Again, this specific environment, this show, it's an entertainment thing. Our audience appreciates it. And it does seem to, it's also not even just about the person we're talking to. It's also about people in the audience who may have never heard the arguments that we're making before. And we do our best to be calm with people until tensions rise on both sides, right? I've seen that happen on both sides where the host gets spicy or the caller gets spicy. Maybe the caller says something offensive that they don't even know is offensive. And we go, whoa, that's not cool to say. I just want you to know that all of these different tactics serve a purpose and they have their place.
Okay, yeah, and if I could just say, I wasn't trying to imply that you people don't do anything outside of the show or anything, and I'm sorry if it came across as I was attacking your show in specific. Like I said, I had the day off today because it's New Year's, and so I called in on a whim. But I guess it was more sort of a social critique. But if I could ask, I don't know how we could qualify this, but in terms of the trans movement versus say 15 years ago, when I think we can agree that's sort of when it started become into the mainstream. It's always existed, but then versus now, how mentalities have shifted and what's been the cause of that. I know that, like I said, it's sort of a huge caveat that right now there's a lot of hate coming from the right and like from the MAGA side and stuff. And there is, and so I can understand the need to be defensive. So again, yeah, I wasn't trying to dog on you people personally, but
Joe,
just,
you
I
need
guess
to
overall,
educate yourself. You need to educate yourself more on a lot of this. Do you know who the first person to throw the brick at Stonewall was?
oh, I don't know, but that seems like that's my favorite protest. I like to visualize things in my head, and it seems like such a wonderful
That's
thing
your
having
favorite
people
thing, but
both
you're not
protest
aware
and
that that
CanCon at the
person
same
was
time.
a trans woman.
I don't
So
understand
trans rights
how that's
activism
relevant, but go ahead.
has been it's relevant because trans rights activism has been going on for a long time. And if we're talking about like,
I said
the
in the
populars,
mainstream consciousness, though.
mainstream,
I said in the mainstream
the
consciousness, though.
trans, Joe, the trans
I'm
rights
gonna
movement
scream.
has been the trans rights movement has
Christy
been
Jorgensen
mainstream
came
as
out in the
long as
50s.
queer rights. Yeah, queer rights as a movement and trans rights as a movement have been around, like Lex was saying, like since the 50s. Like this is not in the past 10 to 15 years. I think you need to be more educated on all of this. And I just think it's very condescending to come in here, tell us how to run our movement
Wait, so
when
are you
you don't
saying
even
that?
know you don't even know these things
So
that are very
no,
basic about what our movement
you're
is
not
and
addressing
how
what I'm
we
saying, though. I'm saying like all that stuff is real. The Stonewall riots, all of that, and there's always been trans people, and there's
no,
always
and I get that you
presumably
have
been some sort of
Joe, I
movement. But
get
I'm
that you
talking
have good
about the
intentions.
public consciousness. Are you saying
Joe,
that people
I get
now,
Joe,
that
stop.
people 15
Okay,
years ago
I
had the
think
same?
Joe, I think we've kind of reached the end of this call. We're going back in circles. you need to go educate yourself more on this. I get that you may have good intentions, but like you're missing the mark on a lot of points here. So, and I think we're not getting anywhere. So I think we're just gonna have to say goodbye for now. Please call in again next week. We'd love to hear more from you, but maybe get your facts straight a bit more before you come back. Yeah.
Literally, like Christine Jorgensen came out in the 50s. It was a huge sensation and it was positively covered in the press. Like what was it, 1995, To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, where Patrick Swayze plays like a trans woman slash drag queen. I think she's more like a trans woman in that, actually. And there's like this wholesome scene where the lady's talking about like, I happen to know a woman who has an Adam's apple, and it's all very accepting. And so like, yes, there was the Ace Venturas of the world and all this kind of nonsense. Like there were bigoted representations, but there were also positive and neutral representations. And like, I don't know where this idea comes from that nobody had ever heard of a trans person until 15 years ago. Like, I genuinely don't know where that comes from. It's like, because it wasn't on CNN, you were not aware? Like, as though like the internet came out in the 90s. So like without the fact that like everybody had access to the newspaper or everybody would talk about what was in the newspaper before, like now you have the internet. I genuinely don't understand where this comes from. It's so irritating.
I also, if I can I just wanted to, I completely agree with the core of the message. It is a bit of a myth that Marsha threw the first brick. She was definitely like a leading force in the gay liberation movement. But yeah, it's a little bit of an urban legend that she threw the first brick, like that specific line.
Thanks for that correction. Yeah.
Let's talk about the poll.
Yeah. Let's do it. Will 2026 be a better year for trans rights? And let me get over to the chat real quick. Over in chat, we have 39% saying yes and 61% saying no. So we still have a majority kind of pessimistic, and but there's a lot of people out there who are hopeful. Lux, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth with this. Like, I do feel a little bit more hopeful about 2026 than I would normally be expecting. I feel like, okay, well, we have midterms this year. So obviously, like maybe 2026 itself won't be better for trans rights, but once we get people voted in next year in 2027, then I think it's likely that we might see some like rollbacks on some of these attacks on trans people. And also like blue states are banding together. Like we have the West Coast Health Alliance now, which is mostly giving like.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. That was an accident. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was trying to delete that input and I made it go to live.
Censorship.
But yeah, so I think, blue states are going to be kind of banding together and rallying. We did just see that Trump is walking back a little bit on the National Guard being deployed to blue areas. So I think it'll probably get worse before it gets better, I suppose, on this particular issue. But I'm hopeful that at least in blue states, like we can continue to sue and make challenges. Like we just got a new attorney general last year in here in Oregon, and they've already filed like dozens, if not hundreds, of suits against the federal government for overreach. So let things bear out a little bit, I guess, is my opinion. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, I'm kind of in a similar situation. I think there's going to be a lot of garbage that happens that's going to be similar to what we've experienced in this past year, and probably on that front is going to get worse. But I do agree that there is more of a fight now. We do have the midterms to look forward to, which hopefully we'll see some improvement there. Like you're saying, in the blue states, I think we are seeing a good effort with some more safe haven cities, safe haven states. And I get that it's not going to, those things aren't going to necessarily help everybody in the community, but they are going to be steps forward. And I think maybe part of this is we need to have like some very cautious optimism when we do. Like I see where people are really scared. But I think that I don't think it's all going to be shit. And
I feel
we
like
need
hope for the best,
to,
prepare for the
yeah,
worst, you know?
exactly. We need to hold on to some of that. Um, and like, don't overlook the small things. I think people expect there to be massive victories all the time in order for us to consider it a good year or a better year. I think we need to put it in the context of this past year, but like compared to 2025, will like smaller things get better, and hold on to those smaller things, because those smaller things will make a big difference in the long run. So
Yeah. I haven't made this request yet today because I don't have the power of polls today, but y'all should hit the like button. Hit the like button. If
yes,
you're not subscribed, then subscribe. Check your notifications. Make sure it's on the right setting that you want it to be on. If you hit like, it immediately helps the show. Like it's a literal like 1-to-1 almost. Like likes equals more viewers. So it's a quick, easy, free way to support us. Also, don't forget, like Arden was just saying, there's LineCon sometime in January. We don't have it scheduled yet, but we will have LineCon for our patrons. It's like $15 a month on Patreon, gets you basically like a ticket to do to view LineCon. We have like 3 speakers, so you get to be there for the Q&A if you have any questions you want to ask, and then $5 a month gets you access to the video on demand afterwards. There might be a talk that I gave not too long ago. So if you go $5 on Patreon, you can go see my talk.
I
You
gave
will
one
not
too.
possibly guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
You will not be able to guess what my talk is about. And I don't know what Ben's was about, but I'm sure it was as exciting as mine, at least. So support the show. It's the new year. We appreciate it.
Yes.
Is Mugs still happening, Arden? Is that still available?
So the mug competition ended at midnight Central Time. So those I don't know if Jimmy, I think he said noon today was when he was going to remove access to the mugs. I don't know if he actually has done
They're
that
still public
yet.
right this second. Real quick,
Okay.
before the time runs out, go to linemerch.com and buy a mug. You can be represent hashtag Team Lux or Ben's over there. Drink coffee, not Kool-Aid.
Yeah,
This is how you get your votes in today. Not actually. I'm not gonna. I don't have access to look at the comments that you can leave on there when you buy stuff, so you cannot vote with that. But don't forget your super chats. You can vote with your super chats. Hashtag Team Ben. Hashtag Team Lux. Plugs.
Yes, and there will be a poll in the side chat for what horrible thing one of us will have to defend live on air. So definitely get your super chats in, get your votes in, and like just a small little plug for both Lux and myself on here. We both also make our own content, and it is really rough out here right now for trans people. Like I mentioned, I lost my job. A lot of people are going through transitions, and January especially pretty hard for viewership. So please, if you're able to, like, go over to our individual channels and like even just throw some likes around, subscribe, turn on notifications. Like all the free stuff over there really does help. And I do host live trivia nights and game nights on Fridays, and audience participation is welcome. So if you want to play games and get a seat at that table, definitely show up over there. It'll be super fun. But enough of the shameless plugs, unless we got other plugs.
One last thing, because I am trying to get to 40,000. I'm about 1,000 away. I just hit 39,000. I want to get to 40,000 so badly on my subscribers on @Luxander Moss YouTube channel. So please. And then also Khaleesi is posting the links to Dr. Ben's channel in the chat there. Subscribe.
I'm not even close. I'm not even close to 40,000, but if you get me there before Lux gets there, I don't know, y'all will get something really special. Yeah.
I will throw my computer onto the floor.
And
yeah,
with
that's
that,
the end of the plugs.
We do have a potentially spicy caller, 17.6, if we'd like to jump into that.
I'm ready.
All right. Let's talk to Talia, she, her from Illinois. It sounds like you want to talk about gendered spaces being based around social perception and not self-ID. Tell us a little bit more about your position.
Yeah, hi. So maybe I guess like first, I really appreciate you guys' show. Sorry, can you hear me or no?
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, great. I really appreciate you guys' show. I think it's like quite a cool political project and stuff like this. I do I've heard a few times, I don't know if it's your view or if it's a misconstrued view that I've heard or something like this, but I think that oftentimes I've heard hosts on this show like really lean into the self-identification view of gender, and I think that that has its place for sure, but I think that it is limited in many social contexts where really like gender is a lot more performative and has to do with like what people's perceptions are of you. And I worry that like in the context of a show like this, when people perceive that the argument being put forth by trans advocates is that you should be able to identify into whatever space you want to, rather than having some kind of like understood social norms, that makes trans people very easy targets to be picked on. And I think like for sure, there will be some element of society that goes after us regardless. But I think that if trans people center their arguments around self-identification, that rather than notions of like, you know, going to the gendered spaces that you blend in with more or things like this, that ultimately just gives a lot more fuel to the fire. And I think about cases like the trans woman in like Gold's Gym, for example, that set off like that whole incident. And then part of what was interesting to me in that case is there were sort of like two, I don't remember the name of the woman who had gotten really upset, but she actually had said that there were two instances. And one was with someone who like very much did not pass, was not making like strong presentational cues or things like this. And the other one seemed to be someone who really did pass quite well. And the way that it was portrayed in the media is that these two are sort of like equivalent instances. And like maybe in some utopian world they should be, but to the average person, the second one is a lot more defensible than the first. And the more that we center our arguments around this like individual who is in a space that they seem aligned with, I think the better off that we're going to be.
I think that's so problematic.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ben. If you want to start.
Well, I see so many problems with this because there are plenty of people who don't have a space where they would socially more align with. And even a lot of those people are cis people. So I think your viewpoint excludes a lot more people and creates more problems with that regard, because then you have to decide what criteria are we basing this this social perception on. Like, are we going on, like, I get you're kind of talking about like passing privilege in a way, but what factors are we going to narrow that down to? How are we going to start excluding people or including people? And how is that going to bleed over into other members of the community? And I think inherently that's going to do much more damage just in general than relying on self-ID and risking, you know, some people giving a bad impression of the trans community because they don't have passing privilege. Like, I think that, yeah, I see this as a higher risk situation. Lux, what did you want to ask?
Yeah, I mean, I'm non-binary. There is no bathroom for me. Also, lots of trans people are either early in their transition or even if they're late in their transition, like, oh, let's take the woman who transitions in her 50s. Okay, well, she, like, I don't even know if there's any amount of FFS that can account for the years of testosterone that person has been exposed to. So, like, what do we do with the people who don't fit in? I don't know if you've ever been present for a situation where a cis woman is followed into the bathroom because someone thinks she shouldn't be in there because she has short hair. I have. It's fucking embarrassing. And also, it's really unsafe. Like, there have been instances recently where the cops were called and a cis male cop enters the bathroom to harass a black lesbian who was in the middle of changing her tampon. So, like, in a practical sense, like, first of all, I want to say most trans people do go off of like, which bathroom do I think I will be safest in today? It's probably the one that I look like I belong in, which means that there are people who will go into the male restroom, even though they identify as a woman. And sometimes they even get told, like, hey, you're in the wrong bathroom. So, like, the fact that it's different from one person to the next, like, in terms of if I interact with 80 people in a day, like when I used to work retail, um, what percentage of them perceive me as this and what percentage see me as this, and like where should I go on a given day, right? So everybody is already making that calculation. But like what I'm advocating for is a world where we don't have to make that calculation, where we can just go to the bathroom and nobody is going to bother anyone for any reason. Because like there's also other situations like, okay, let's say this happened in Topeka, Kansas. Let's say you're a woman in her 50s who has a developmentally disabled son in his 20s, and you're at the public library and he needs to use the restroom. Like, I'm just going to let that hang for a second because there is no right or wrong answer. The answer is let them go to whichever restroom. Like, the mom is probably going to feel more comfortable taking her son into the women's restroom, but is she now going to be subject to like ejection from the premises, trespassing charges, potentially arrest for like using the wrong restroom? Does her son actually represent a danger? We probably wouldn't argue that a mom can take her like 6-year-old boy into the restroom with her. At what point does things change, right? I think ultimately we should be caring more about the behavior. So long as nobody is peeping, so long as nobody is harassing, I am just of the opinion that we should use whatever spaces it doesn't, and it shouldn't matter. Like, regardless of whether, I'm not going to say like, oh, use whatever space you feel safe in or use whatever space you feel comfortable in. Like, point blank period, I think we should just use whatever space and it shouldn't really matter. And cis women have done that for years as well. Like, oh, the line to the women's room is too long in this bar, I'm just going to go pee in the men's room. Like, I just don't see it being in any way a positive to go, you have to look at least this feminine in order to enter this space. Cause like, we've just fully regressed to patriarchy then. Cause it's going to be cis women more than anybody else who are like, and TERFs do this now. They're like, well, you're not trying hard enough to look feminine, sweetie. Like, oh, you need to wear more feminine clothes. You need to grow your hair out. It's like, we've just fully regressed in that society.
So I think that, like, I agree with some of the broad strokes of what you're saying, but I think that it's misconstruing a bit kind of the viewpoint that I'm espousing, which is, for one, to be really clear, I'm advocating for a socially believed norm within the trans community. And like, I, for example, used the men's restroom for around 2 years while I was in the process of transitioning. So like, I'm certainly not unaware that like this kind of thing happens. This social norm, I think, did exist for a long time. And like, if you look to people who transitioned in the 70s and the 80s, et cetera, like that social norm of you need to meet some level of societal expectation in order to advocate for your presence in one of these spaces, like that was how it worked. So I don't think that it is going.
It's inherently exclusionary.
That's just sexism.
Sorry, what were you saying?
Like so you're saying like, I think that you're kind of saying that this only applies to trans people, but in practicality, this also applies to cis women. And what you're saying is sexist. You need to try harder to look feminine in order to earn access to that space. What about the people who can't afford surgery? Do they just not get to use public restrooms, or do they need to reduce themselves in dignity by using by using the men's restroom? Or do they need to subject themselves to the potential of assault and rape in the men's restroom? Like, yeah, like I'm not disagreeing that like passing used to be the penultimate like goal of transition, second only to like being authentic to yourself. Like, so I'm not disagreeing with you that society is sexist and that trans people largely have tried to adhere to those sexist standards. And now we get accused of supporting stereotypes. Like, I don't know if you've heard that liner before, but like, oh, all you trans people, like you start wearing dresses and pink and stuff. You're just reinforcing sexist stereotypes, which is a matter of our survival at a certain point. But it is still sexist to say that is the standard that you should try to adhere to. And so sad for you, you don't get to use the correct restroom if you don't meet this arbitrary standard.
I think that, like, there's a few points you brought up there. Let me start with this question of, I think, like, cis women being targeted is, like, one of the pretty awful backlashes that we've seen. I think, though, there is a gap between what it looks like to be phenotypically female and then to have like a gender expression that looks more masculine or feminine. And I think that allowing people to have whatever gender expression and consider that to be like fully normal and valid is very important. I also think the same thing is true for people who have whatever phenotypical expression they feel comfortable with. The vast
Talia,
majority of cis women. Yeah, of course.
You acknowledge that phenotype, like, sure, there are some aspects of your phenotype that you can change medically or surgically, but you understand that the majority of that is uncontrollable. And there are a lot of people who cannot change their phenotype to be feminine enough or to be seen as woman enough. Right? You understand
absolutely. That. And I think.
So you think just sucks to suck? You can't do enough to be more feminine, so you have to be in the men's restroom, then that's okay with you.
I mean, I think that there can be realities where like someone can have been dealt like a very bad hand by society and the life that they're in. It doesn't mean that we need to advocate for a utopian ideal that is going to accommodate that person, right?
Talia, so you are okay. No, so this is gross. This is gross. You are saying that there are some people in the community that are worth sacrificing so that you can have your ideals of what gender spaces should be. Like this is absolutely disgusting. Like, no, if you are, then that is a sexist position. That is a transphobic position. No, because if you are going to be an advocate and an ally
Dr.
for trans people, even as a trans person,
words in my mouth, and I'm letting you.
No, you
continue.
Said. I'm not Talia. Talia, you said that it's unfortunate that some people cannot meet those certain standards, and then for the good of the community, they should continue to use the men's restroom or continue to use certain spaces.
You said accommodate them, basically. You said we should not advocate for their accommodation.
And that is transphobic.
Like it's utopian in some way.
Right. So there's quite a big gap between we are not in a position that we should be advocating for some kind of utopian ideal and saying we should sacrifice
We're
people.
not advocating for a utopian idea. We're advocating for equal rights. This is an issue of equity. Right, Talia?
I think to some extent, like, advocating for equity is a utopian ideal in the world that we live in, right? Like, for example, what is really the answer is that everyone should have had, like, healthcare available to them at a young age. Everyone should be able to have paid for resources to help them transition. like that is the kind of what an ideal world looks like. There should be more
Yeah, but
research
we
into
can't fix
trans
that. We
healthcare so
can't
that
fix that,
more
Talia.
people can pass.
Right, right.
But in the same
Talia, I know we
vein
cannot
as
fix that point. We can't fix that point, but what are some things that we can do to improve their future, to improve their lives in ways that we can impact it? And one of those ways is by allowing them to use the restroom that they feel the most safe in, by allowing them to live as a person that they're safe, that they feel safe being, that they feel happy being. They have one life, right? Like, and your position robs people of that. And you're saying that, like, and this is kind of disturbing to me. And this is something that bothers me about certain people, even within our community. The idea that you were able to go through these parts of your transition and you were able to reach this threshold you wanted. And so now you get to reap the benefits of using the bathroom you want. But sorry, these other people who are in this other position that you're not in anymore, they have to just deal with the consequences and they don't get to have those benefits that you got to have in your transition. That's a problem.
Sorry, but you frame this as if the way that the world works is people decide what they advocate for, and then that's what happens. Whereas what we actually really clearly see
I'm not saying that.
that people,
I'm not saying that advocacy is going to lead to 100% yield in social change. That is not at all what we're claiming. But the effort still needs to be there. We still need to do things that are going to at least attempt to make the world better for those people. And even inclusion in spaces like the bathroom, the locker room, that does matter. And that matters at such a small level. Like, you're trying to say that this is we're trying to advocate for this utopia. We're fighting for this utopia. And I don't believe we're going to get to a utopia, but that's a big thing. Being allowed in the bathroom is a much smaller thing than that, right?
Oh, for
So
sure.
please don't
But
conflate
what's
the two.
actually happened is people are making the argument that you've made, and that is fueling a bigger and bigger transphobic backlash. And what's happening
Talia, do
is
you
rather
think that
than
people,
rights
Talia,
moving
Talia,
forward,
answer this for me.
rights have moved
Talia, do you
backwards.
think do you think that the people arguing against trans rights are making that would change their mind if it weren't for this bathroom issue?
I think that a lot of the people who are tacitly okay with those arguing against trans rights would be much more opposed to it if it weren't for the
people that are against trans rights are going to be
easily
against trans
available.
rights outside of the bathroom issue.
Talia,
Like, that's not the sole issue keeping them in that position, right?
trans people have been using whatever bathroom we want and have been legally allowed to use whatever bathroom we want for more than all of our combined lifetimes, including Arden. And then in 2016, hold on, in 2016 in North Carolina, they decided to pass a law. And since then, it has been the fault of the aggressor at every point. The idea that trans people or trans activism is in any way fueling this anti-trans rhetoric is simply victim blaming. And I know, Talia, that you desperately want to identify ways in which you could change or we could change and we could be better to avoid this, but that's called being a pick-me. And just because you're not in the first round doesn't mean they're not going to still come for you in the fourth and fifth round when they're deciding which groups to target and the acceptable group gets smaller and smaller. Like, I understand that where this comes from is like a desperation to exert control over a situation that you have no control over. But like, it's not fair to victim blame your sisters who don't have the same access to passing as you do to say that it's their fault, because what you just said is it is the fault of trans people who are advocating for widened access to public spaces that the anti-trans backlash is getting worse. That is simply not true, and it's totally unfair to put that at the feet of your trans siblings. To say that our oppression is our fault.
I think that you're putting words in my mouth.
No,
First,
I'm just stating what you're saying in a way that you don't like. You just don't like that you are blaming trans people for this anti-trans backlash. That is what you're doing.
Sorry, but there's quite a big gap between saying this action has caused this effect and saying, therefore, someone is to blame. Like,
Yeah,
those
no,
are
you're
not at
assigning
all equivalent
responsibility.
statements.
No. That's called assigning responsibility. You have assigned responsibility to trans people in some part, whether it's in whole or in part. You are assigning responsibility. That's called blaming the group that you're assigning the responsibility to, as though there's something different that trans people could be doing that would stop the deluge, when that is just not the case.
See,
We do not have the
you
power
aren't the
to
same.
change the path of this mainstream like discussion. It has always been the aggressive right finding a new scapegoat group. It has nothing to do with what trans people are doing. We are existing, and that is the problem for them. Whether we're using the bathroom, whether we're in the sports or not, it's the fact that we exist. It's not anything to do with our behavior. We cannot behave better and have them stop.
So I think, again, there's a conflation between whether someone could do an action differently that might have caused a different outcome and whether or not that person is responsible. I don't think those two are equivalent statements.
No, they are literally like that is such a weasel that you're trying to do. I don't respect this at all.
I mean, there is a lot of philosophy built on the fact
If
that
only
those
you
two are
hadn't
not
worn a
equivalent
skirt.
statements.
If only you hadn't gone to that bar. If only you weren't out so late. If only you wore more makeup. Like, it's literally just victim blaming, dude. I don't know what to tell. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Sorry for calling you dude. That wasn't really directed at you.
Look, I mean, I appreciate that you've rhetorical device that you want to throw me into. I don't think that that is fair or accurate. And the idea
What are you
that,
advocating
like,
for? Are
responsibility
you advocating
and
that trans people should
consequentialism
change?
are always the same is not something that is like a generally accepted premise. Like, there's whole branches of moral philosophy that say that these two things are very different. So, like, you're welcome to not agree with or not respect the opinion.
In a practical sense, what are you doing? Are you trying? You're saying we as trans people need to stop doing XYZ in order to prevent ABC. You are advocating for a practical, like, we need to change our behavior. We need to change the way we approach this. We need to change what bathroom we go to in order to stop the aggression against us. Like, in a practical sense, like whether there's a moral difference in a philosophy class is not really at issue here, because what you're saying is we need to change something, which means we are responsible for what happens as a result of our advocacy. So if we advocate for a self-ID form of use whatever bathroom you feel like, and you're saying that is one of the things that is causing the backlash, that you're directly saying that we have done an action that has caused the consequence of our loss of rights and increased aggression against us. Like, I don't know in what world you live in where saying we did this, then this happened. So if we do this instead, then maybe that thing will stop happening. That is assigning responsibility to the marginalized group for the backlash of their oppressors.
Sorry, like, I totally do not agree with this word responsibility being used. Like, if I go down some street that's icy and I slip and fall, is that, like, my responsibility that I did that? Is that the responsibility that the city didn't properly salt the street? Like, somewhere in between? I don't know. Like, probably the city is supposed to do it.
This is different, Talia. This
Idea
example
that,
is different from what we're saying.
Of any action.
Talia.
Sorry, I let you guys finish.
You are.
Every single thing that you guys have said. I've not interrupted you guys once. And you've interrupted everything that I've said.
Talia, stop. Stop, Talia. Your analogy does not work here, because you are now saying it's you between some natural, like a force of nature, of like a weather thing. That is different from a human did an action to oppress a group of people, and they wouldn't have done that if that oppressed group of people acted differently. Right? You have an an actual action being done by a person. So if somebody, you know, decides that they're going to vote to take away trans rights, and their reason is because somebody was in the bathroom who looked more masculine, that's not the fault of the person who looked more masculine, right? Like that person who voted for Trump in that case did that action, like they did that action. It is nobody else's fault that they did that action. So the point is here, the accountability needs to go to the person.
I agree with the idea of fault.
Action
that doesn't mean that if other people didn't take different actions, that it couldn't have had a different outcome.
This is why, Talia, do you understand the rhetoric that Lux was using with the rape apologetics? Like, do you not see how this is a similar argument, right? Like, if somebody decides to sexually assault somebody else, that is not at all the fault of the person who was the victim, right? The person who did the action, and that should be the issue that we're focusing on. And that's what our position is. Stop focusing on the person who's using the bathroom. Focus on the people who are oppressing the people in the bathroom.
I'm uncomfortable talking about that analogy, but I'll talk about another one, if that's okay, that involves just people.
Sure, but you understand the specific analogy. You understand the purpose of what I'm saying, though, right?
I do understand the purpose of what you guys are saying. I fully understand your argument. I'm happy to summarize it back to you. I fear that you guys are not understanding my argument, which maybe is on me, but I worry a bit that you want to put me into some box. I don't agree with that box, and then you're not listening
to clear it up,
towards what I'm
Talia,
actually advocating for.
To clear this up, we have gone off of the things that you've said. You have said specific things.
I don't agree with that.
Do you want to re-clarify your position? A person, like, who do you think should be allowed to use women's spaces?
I think that people who are socially perceived as women should be allowed to use women's spaces. And I think that that means a certain thing in today's society and context, and we should try to move to some more utopian ideal where that
What is the problem? What is the problem? And then what is the problem if those criteria are not met? What is the outcome?
Like, what should people do is I think they shouldn't be using women's spaces in that scenario.
So then what comes after that? So let's say somebody does not fit the criteria you mentioned and does use the women's spaces. What then?
I think it should be seen as a social transgression.
Okay, and then what are people going to do about that?
Yeah, so what we're trying to get to is like, what is the actual consequence? What are people going to do in response to that situation?
I think they probably shouldn't do anything in response to that situation. I think that they should, if they want to make that person prove some factors about their identity, then I think that they can tell someone that they're uncomfortable with this person in their space, etc. But it's a—
oh my God, Talia,
can be a social transgression.
Talia, have you ever heard of the right to comfort?
No, I've not actually.
Okay, cool, great. I'm so happy to talk to you about this. So the thing is that this is exactly the argument that was used when white people were like, I don't want black people in the bathroom. I shouldn't have to be around those people. They're so violent. They're so aggressive. The women are more attractive than me. So like, we need to keep them out of public spaces. Like, the idea that someone has the right to not be around people they don't like is a white supremacist thing. And it's also in this case being used for transphobia. People don't have the right to comfort. They don't have the right to have a space where other people aren't allowed to be there. I mean, if you want to, whatever, you buy a private golf club and make stupid fucking rules, then whatever. But this is not the case for public spaces, public restrooms, public locker rooms, sports participation in public leagues. This is just bigoted. Like, what you're advocating for is bigoted. And so I want to assert this to you. Okay, so do you think the black lesbian who had the cops called on her while she was changing her tampon in the Walmart bathroom, do you think she should have been using the men's restroom, huh?
I don't.
Okay, well, that's directly contradictory to what you just fucking said. So it kind of seems like your ideology is completely impossible to support. Like, the moment we tell you the results of your ideology, you walk it back and pretend like that's not what you just said, but that's what you just fucking said.
I think I'm actually really disappointed by how this call went.
Yeah, me too, dude. Like, honestly, cringe. You are not capable of recognizing the actual consequences of your beliefs, and that's why it's so frustrating. No. Hold on, real quick. Hold on, really, Talia. I don't care about your opinion. You are bigoted against other trans people. You say one thing, and then we challenge you on it, and you walk it back like that's not what you just said. This is a horrendous. It's like you're hurting cis women more than you're hurting trans women, but it's also really sad that you're hurting trans women, and you walked up the ladder and now you've pulled the ladder up behind you. Like, honestly, super disappointing that you are not capable of actually confronting the consequences of your belief system and what you've professed. We haven't twisted anything. We've just rephrased it back to you in a way that, oh, it makes it sound much worse if you say, oh, I think that the responsibility for transphobia is on trans people. Obviously, that sounds bad. So let me try to say it in a way that sounds less bad. Like, I don't respect this position. I think you need to walk it back and rethink some of these things and rethink the consequences of your actions. Because if you say in one moment, I think that the person who isn't socially perceived as a woman shouldn't use the woman's room. And then I say, what about this black trans or this black cis woman who was perceived as a man? It's like, okay, there are situations where people who you think should be in the bathroom are being taken out of the bathroom, and you're just like not ideologically consistent on this at all. Ben, do you want to have any last remarks here?
No, I think we're good. I think we can drop this call.
All right, cool. Talia, have a happy new year. I couldn't think of anything nice to say. Okay, we're good.
All right. Well, that was a thing. Before we kind of get into some of these next calls, I know you and I wanted to have a little kind of continued discussion from last night, because last night it was super fun. There were a lot of people talk about the same thing at the same time, and you get a lot of type A people in the same space, and it devolves into chaos. As you all know, if you didn't watch it, go back and watch the end. If you really want to see that showdown, Forrest and Shannon, with a very loud discussion. So go watch that. But Lux and I have different predictions and maybe some overlapping thoughts about what we think is going to happen to the commander-in-chief this upcoming year. The question that Jimmy had posed last night was, do we think that Trump's presidency is going to last the duration of this year? Whether that be, is he going to be removed from office? Is he going to pass away in office? How is this going to go down, and what are the factors? So, Lux, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I usually, I think, like, evil people live forever. That kind of just is how it seems to bear out a lot of the times, especially when they're super rich and they have access to all kinds of weird drugs. Like, it kind of seems like we're just pumping this man full of stimulants all the time. But some stuff that I've seen from physicians online or physical therapists online has kind of caused me to be open to the idea that there might be a critical health failure at some time in the relative near future. Jimmy was on this thing of like him thinking that Trump would just like step down from the presidency, which I don't think that would happen without like an immense amount of pressure. So I've been following somebody on Instagram who suggests that Trump has frontotemporal dementia in stage 4. which is the point at which like you're you have aphasia and like it's been hard to tell about his cognitive decline because of his tendency to just make shit up and lie. But it could very well be the case that this is an expression of the dementia, that he just invents lies and truly believes them because his brain is at a critical failure. This person has pointed out the way that Trump walks is indicative of somebody who has probably taken a pretty nasty fall recently because his balance is just really off. Possibility of multiple strokes, possibility of heart failure or kidney failure because we think that these bruises on the hands are from infusions. So basically, like, I'm open to the idea that either he's going to mentally decline to such a degree that they cannot keep weakened Bernie him, like they can't just keep doing it. Of course, they're going to hold out on that front as long as possible, but it just kind of does seem like a person with that particular confluence of health issues. And given that he is all the way in, as far as we can tell by his public behavior, not without access to his medical stuff, that he could potentially be at a point where like he only has 2 to 4 months from this point. Obviously, I'm not speaking on this as a medical professional. So, but I didn't know if you knew about the stage 4 frontotemporal dementia. So I'm interested in your opinion on that.
Well, yeah, no, and this is where I'm open to either possibility. I'm not like dead set on I think he's going to survive or not. Like I voted for yes just because I think that there's a lot in his favor as far as the medical capability and stuff, and kind of to the point that it seems like this man is not going to let anything stop him until he is like completely in the ground. But I think that the differentials are kind of broad, and I definitely see the potential for it being a frontotemporal dementia. Like thinking about how these different things present. And when you had brought that up last night, I was like, that is a really, really good consideration. And there may be some overlap between multiple types of dementia, like whether it's like a frontotemporal piece along with a vascular piece. I think that could be very easily overlapping. Whether or not there's something else in there too, like I don't necessarily think it's like a Lewy body dementia, but I don't know the full details. But we do know with frontotemporal, like the big hallmark features are like personality changes and loss of inhibition. Like that's where you really start seeing geriatric patients get violent. And so I guess my thoughts about that particular differential are how much of that is an influence from the dementia and how much of it is his personality. Like how much did he change? Like what is that that separation between the two? And I think with just who Trump is and has always been, that line can be very close. And so I don't know his records and how they're kind of separating that out, but I do see that as a very likely differential. I also definitely see the likelihood of a vascular dementia just because with very likely cardiovascular disease and history of likely strokes as well. We just see shutting down of certain parts of his brain, and that could be a vascular dementia primarily affecting inhibition centers. Like it could be a combination of these. And so I think on my optimistic side, I see a lot of potential for him getting to a point where he is no longer independent. Like that could be coming very, very soon. I am convinced that he has heart failure of some degree. I don't know exactly to what level. Based on his like extremity edema, I'm fairly convinced that he does. He might also, like, I know he's getting infusions. Whether his bruising is related to just being geriatric and having a tendency to bruise, or if that's in combination with, is he on a blood thinning medication, which could, if he has AFib, that could cause heart failure and cause the need for a blood thinner. So there's like a lot of components here that I think are all contributing. I think the heart failure thing is less urgent in his case than the neurologic stuff. I think the neurologic stuff is going to cause the end of his not pregnancy. Why am I saying that? Presidency. I cannot speak. we're aborting. We're not post-birth abortion for
Yeah.
Donald Trump. No, no, but his presidency will likely end because of something neurological rather than cardiovascular.
Yeah.
But as these are so like easily overlapping, it could be any number of them. So
Yeah.
I agree with you on a lot of this, and we'll kind of see what
I
happens.
did
I don't think
I
he's
did
going to
also
step down
see
really.
No, of course. I did
Yeah.
see, and I don't think I brought this up last night, but like, so not only has there been speculation that he's like wearing a diaper, but there is also like from somebody who works with geriatric patients, he was like, it's clear that he's wearing a leg bag for urinary
Mhm.
incontinence. So it seems like the connection between his brain and his bodily functions is also starting to degrade, which to me, that feels like a fairly advanced level of brain dysfunction. But I mean, I
Mhm.
don't know. Like I have dysautonomia, so I guess it just feels like if that got worse, I would be like, oh no.
Yeah, and it's that case too where I think I brought up the point last night before you got on the stream that like it's clear to me that he is in full-blown dementia and no longer in a stage of cognitive decline. Like there's
Mm,
set criteria for what labels you as cognitive impairment, what labels you as dementia, and it's not as much about the memory loss specifically as it is about like functional independence. So it's like
yeah.
if you have cognitive decline without functional impairment, that is just cognitive impairment. If you
Mm,
have functional impairment in any one of the four domains that they look at, that is dementia. So I've even seen people with full blown dementia that seem like they're doing a lot better than Donald Trump is, just because they have certain areas of functional impairment that they are not independent anymore, like even with driving, etc., to where they get a diagnosis. So I think by those criteria, he is in full blown dementia at this point.
yeah.
So
We'll see. Bingo cards ready for 2026. You know, it's on there. Like
yes,
either stroke or cognitive impairment to a point where like we cannot continue propping him up, and we're gonna have to switch him out for JD Vance or whatever. And who knows what would happen at that point? We can speculate on and on and on. But
yeah,
let's go ahead and start a new call, and then I'm gonna run to the restroom.
sounds good. Anyone that you
Uh,
feel strongly about?
I think at this point, let's just take them in the order that they came, since we've had people
Okay,
who've been waiting for a while.
sounds good. I will start with Sans, pronouns she, her, from Arizona. You are live on the line. It sounds like you want to talk about internalized misogyny and sexism. Tell me a bit about your situation.
Yeah. Hi. Thanks for taking my call, Dr. Ben. And sorry I missed you, Lux. Good luck in the bathroom.
Lux will
Getting
come back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's going
So
on?
I have kind of a weird. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying what's going on.
Oh yeah. So I have kind of a weird situation. I have two children. They were both assigned female at birth. My oldest is a trans man, which looking back, I think I should have seen the signs when like he was around 4 or so. So yeah, he's awesome and he's great. And it's really not about him. It's my daughter. She identifies as she, her. She is really upset about the way women are being treated in our society.
Mm-hmm.
Being a woman in America sucks. She can look around and see. And so I think she has seen that her trans brother is being treated so much better now that he is he. And she goes out in public, and I think there's so much misogyny and sexism against women now, and like what she calls like pick-me girls. She sees these people and the way they look at her now and perceive her. And so she has like chopped her hair off, and for Christmas, I bought her a bunch of boys' clothes, and she wants me to address her as he, him when we go out in public, because I think she wants to take advantage of like what she perceives as privilege that her brother is getting now, being perceived as a man in society. And
Yeah.
I'm kind of troubled by that, because I don't, she isn't trans, and she's told me that she is gender fluid, but she's not trans. And I don't I feel conflicted about that, and
Yeah.
that's really why I'm calling.
That is a really tough situation, and it is something that it's important to mention. This is a very pervasive myth uh, about trans men, is this idea that you automatically inherit cis male privilege by uh, transitioning in a masculinizing direction. And so definitely I can see the issue where someone from the outside looking in would say, this person is getting treated so much better on the surface. I should try to
Mm.
transition. And that's, I think it's worth having a discussion and like making her aware that sure, there are some privileges that are gained, by masculinizing, but there are also a lot of costs. For example,
Yeah,
especially within the bathroom discussion now, of course, a lot of the focus is on trans women. But if someone transitions in a masculinizing direction and they try to use either bathroom, there are risks now for both. It's not like a trans
yeah,
man can use the men's bathroom and not be harassed. It's also not like they can use a women's bathroom and not be harassed. So that opens you up to issues. There's also others with society still does not see you as a man. In a lot of ways, you are
yeah,
still treated with the same misogyny that a cis woman would be undergoing. Um, and so that's something that really needs to, I think, be expressed. And like, I think if she understood that a lot of the things that she's struggling with um, are not just going to go away with being more masculine, and that the important thing is you're going to have hardships either way. Like no matter what, if you are
yeah,
not born into that uh, cishet white male Christian bucket within our society, you are going to have a lot of struggles. And unfortunately, those aren't going to go away no matter how you try to present yourself to society. So, knowing that you're going to have to face some kind of struggle, would you rather face that as who you are authentically? Or would you want to put on the costume and pretend to be somebody else and feel like you're not being authentic with yourself and the society around you? And I think that's what's really, really important to communicate to this person. I do think it's okay to like this. That's different from gender exploration. I think still leave the door open for, as you said, your child is gender fluid and uses she, her pronouns. I think it's totally okay to let your child explore those different things, especially like if she wants to try out shorter hair, different clothes, different identity expression, all of that. I think that's totally okay. I think it's just really emphasizing the point of doing it authentically versus doing it to try to gain some kind of social privilege. Lux, do you have any thoughts on this?
I kind of missed the beginning of the call. So, um,
Yeah.
I mean, like, I guess just coming back to the prompt of like internalized misogyny and sexism versus like the feeling that you are trans. Like, yeah. So with a kid and you're trying to help them navigate, like, do they really strongly identify with not being a woman? Or is this like, we are just now getting to the age where we're starting to understand the pressures that we're going to be given by society? Like, when I was a teenager, that's when I realized I was trans. And it's like, it took several years of going like, am I just feeling like I'm bucking against the idea of having to conform to what womanhood is? And I guess to some extent, like, it was helpful for me to process that, like, I like women. I don't think badly of women. I just don't want to be one. Like, so finding those areas where like your dysphoria is like, where we experience the rub. Is the rub like against having to wear dresses? Like, because you could potentially not be trans and just not like wearing dresses. We've got tomboyish people in the world. So, of course, I think that is kind of part of a gender exploration process, going like, which aspects of this am I actually chafing against? And finding more women idols who do not fit into those. So, like, is there a woman who works on cars or does sports or something like, or who is more muscular or more masculine, who you could potentially like empathize with or look up to as a role model or something. And finding that, you know, you can look up to women and still not want to be one. Like, you know, I think that it's a tricky exploration, especially when you're a teenager and you're just hitting that, like, oh, I guess people are going to start considering me a woman now. Uh-oh, you know, all the baggage that comes with it.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And I think that's a lot of what it is she just turned 19. And I am super open to having her explore. I was super open when her brother realized, and he actually was non-binary for a short time, when he realized, no, like, I'm definitely he, him. And then, like, looking back on his history, he had always been he, him. Like, we just didn't realize it at the time. And he's fully socially transitioned, and he's super happy now. She is very, very girly. Like, she loves pink and purple. She loves, like, really, really girly things. Her issue is really just how she's perceived when she leaves the house. And I think that might be part of the problem. She sees me as a very strong woman, and she sees all the sexism and misogyny that I have had to deal with, both in my past and, like, even now. Like, as much as things have gotten better, they've also gotten so much worse. And the idea of, like, not even having bodily autonomy in America anymore as a woman, and feeling like she's lost some, like, control of being able to have her own identity as a woman in the world. So she just is rejecting that and doesn't even want to be a woman anymore, because she feels like she can't be herself, even though that's who she is. And I feel like she's, like, out of desperation choosing this other path. And I agree with Dr. Ben. You know, I don't think that my son has as much privilege as she perceives that he does. Really, it's just that he's perceived as a man in the world, and that's it. So I don't know.
Yeah. I definitely think so. I understand that sometimes when cis women are struggling, and I'm not saying your daughter is a cis woman, I'm just saying generally, when cis women
Yeah.
see the joy that trans women bring to womanhood, that like someone can choose this and even choose like a hyper feminine version of this and see it as like a wonderful thing that you can aspire toward, like that it's something that you can want, it's something that you can absolutely find like a lot of euphoria in. Um, but also like it's okay to have like an angry feminist phase where you burn your bras. Like I feel like that's a totally, she's 19, she's in college, or like at least college age. That's a super normal,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, phase. And like I don't want that to downplay the significance of that, but like
Right.
do it, like go for it. You know, I think that that's completely fine to express it, to cut your hair short, to have a fling where you do the opposite of what everybody expects you to do. That's a part of finding yourself. And maybe you'll find
Yeah.
in a few years that like you're like, okay, I don't need to go this hard. Or maybe you just double down and get angrier. Like that's such a raw experience of being a woman that I really admire, that it's like the particular axis of struggle that they go through in finding themselves, and like being able to reconnect to being a woman in a way that's like on your terms. Because yeah, the society around us is so shit. So yeah, I would say like, you know, give her lots of freedom to explore that, and like provide her with some literature from some like second wave angry feminists or something. Like, I don't know, maybe she needs to tap into the oh god, what was it called? Like the Dyke March. Like maybe your kid doesn't identify as a lesbian, but like just learning about those strong women, and like the, you know, I know Leslie Feinberg is trans, but like she was part of the lesbian community. And so I think Leslie Feinberg is a great person to read. Yeah, that's what
Okay.
I would just be like, go explore the angry feminist phase that you're having.
I love that. That's great advice. But yeah, no, I mean, I have her watching things like the Transatlantic Call-In show. Like, you know, we love Dr. Ben. We've watched him for a really long time. Lux, your experience where you've kind of been perceived as both male and female out in the world, I think is super helpful, because like your voice can kind of, you understand maybe both sides of how people can be perceived. And Arden, of course, is fantastic. The fact that, you know, she's transitioned and she has that voice of now being a woman in the world and how she's seen now versus like knowing what things were like in the past. I find these things super, super helpful. And so I really appreciate your guys' voices.
Yeah, I would say chewed gum too, because like Alyssa loves being a woman. She's a very feminine woman. Like she speaks very strongly from that position of like being a woman isn't shameful. It's a good thing. You know, we should explore ourselves sexually and like not feel like we're degraded by that. So definitely like I think chewed gum is another great resource for like how to tap into that. And like you can identify as gender fluid. Like I'm not saying like box your kid into a particular place, but like to just find the version of being a person that works for you by like seeing what different people's experiences are like, you know?
For sure. Yeah. And she does say that she is gender fluid. And so I want to give her space to explore that for sure.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I appreciate you guys being here on New Year's Day. So I hope we have a good new year, and I hope Vance isn't vice president, but I hope Trump dies. So.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
Vance,
for
we
your
appreciate
call.
It. Happy New Year.
Have a good one, guys. Take care. Bye.
All right. Any thoughts before jumping into the next one?
I'm going to be on Calling It Now after this. So if you just stick around in the chat, it should automatically forward you to the political show. I don't know what the title of the show is today, but Jimmy and I are going to throw down about politics more broadly, argue with MAGA, try to get some of that going. So stick around if you want more content after the content.
And I know there was somebody trying to stir up shit in the side chat just now, and you were told by multiple people that you missed your opportunity to call into this show, but you can call into the next show. So instead of doing that in the side chat, you know, if you're so confident in your perspective, get your voice heard on the show, and actually let it be challenged. So hopefully they call in.
Got about 45 minutes, and then we'll be taking calls fresh anew on the Jimmy Snow channel.
Yes, definitely. And go like and subscribe over there as well.
You better.
Don't forget. All right. Next up, we have Lee, they, them from Pennsylvania. Sounds like some struggles with the current administration. Lee, you are live on the line. What would you like to talk about?
Hi, Dr. Ben, and hi, Lux. Actually, I just had to say that, Lux, you are my, like, gender. I am so jealous of your gender and what I want. I've actually been following you guys for a while, like, and you, Lux, you're like one of my favorite people. I just gotta say.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Lee. Lay it on us. What do you want to talk about?
So I actually called in 2 weeks ago because I was nervous about my first HRT appointment, which I went to and successfully have been prescribed P, which I am super duper excited but nervous about. The reason I am nervous mostly was, first of all, family issues with a lot of like religion and science, where I wanted to talk about it last time, but did not have the time, so it had to be a short call. But my concern is with like the current administration and how they're pushing religion and science and, well, bunk science, but they're trying to push this type of science down people's throats about how, you know, it's wrong to be trans, or like it's dangerous to be trans, or and my concern is my parents are very, like, unfortunately right wing, and I try to like gently push like science articles at them and say, hey, you know, you should maybe like look into this instead of just assuming from what they say on TV, or listening to just whatever they say on TV or the commercials or what have you. Like, my biggest example is like my mother gets mad at me because I've told her about like old wives' tales. They tell you don't go outside with a wet head, and I'm like, that's because you'll get sick. And I'm like, that's not how you get sick. And she goes, yes, it is. And I'm like, no, you get sick from germs. That's not how you get sick. So it's like talking to a wall. And my concern is how hard they are pushing this, you know, anti-trans narrative, like going after the youth and trying to take away gender affirming care for youth. And now Like, what do you think, if they keep going after this, do you think there would ever be, like, that they would be able to take it away from adults as well? Because I've heard, like, I've been listening to, like, backlogs of the show and listen to, like, people coming on and saying they can't get their gender affirming care anymore in certain states. Like, it's getting pushed so hard. And that's my concern, is being a little open here, but I'm disabled and trans, and, like, I've slowly started just getting my life together and taking care of my health and my happiness, like, in the last year and a half. And now it's like, you know, ever since this administration has come in, I'm like, oh my God, they might be taking away, like, the ability to actually be a person, to be able to be who I want to be, kind of thing. And I mean, not just for me, but, like, I've had this concern for a while, but it seems so real now with this current admin. And just, I mean, kind of like the funny thing is, I was calling in about this before you even did the poll. And I was like, oh, that's a good question, because it's the same thing I'm calling about, kind of, sort of.
Yeah, I mean, the methods by which they can take away care from adults, you know, it's gonna be gradual. It is gradual, and it's hitting certain things. Like, if they make it like, okay, the military will no longer cover this. Like, okay, then military service members, and that's a big problem because the military up until recently was like the #1 employer of trans people in this nation. So that's quite a
Right.
large chunk of trans people who now have to find other form of employment. Um, it's if you're disabled, so you're probably on Medicare. So if they do
Um,
say that, sorry, go ahead.
yep. I was just going to say, I actually work, but I'm on FMLA, just because I have to work, like, part-time. So,
Okay. So if you have insurance through an employer, um, then it's gonna kind of depend on that employer. Like, I think that the ACA
right,
basically says, like, you can't deny this care because of, like, it's functionally a pre-existing condition. Of course, like, in the state of Oregon and Washington, we both have, like, constitutional or otherwise, like, legislative rules that say you specifically cannot deny any kind of gender affirming care that has been declared medically necessary by a physician. I know
right,
Pennsylvania is, like, more purple, so it might vary a little bit. But those are the kinds of areas where, like, not being able to get it kind of come in. But ultimately, if there's a doctor who's giving you the prescription, if you can afford it, then you should still be able to get it, even if you have to go, "Oh, I'm using a good RX coupon instead of
right,
my insurance." So I mean, it doesn't seem like they're gonna reschedule it in a way that makes it impossible to achieve the care. It may be that you have to switch providers, or it may be that you have to do a telehealth online. I don't see it
right,
coming to a head of, like, a complete blanket ban on adults. Of course, they're proposing a felony ban on gender affirming care for under 18s. Um, so yeah, in my view, it may be tricky to continue to afford it, but you should still be able to find a way to access it legally, of course, in Pennsylvania in particular.
Yeah, and there are going to
right,
be like I'm seeing a lot of physicians using some workarounds or like getting some ideas for workarounds on the table to get people access because the fact remains that a lot of this care is still going to be available for cisgender people, of course. So it's how
Yeah.
do we document this to where somebody is still going to be eligible? And some of the ways that I'm seeing, like for example, if you've been on uh, HRT for a good period of time, you can develop hypogonadism because your own organs are going to start shutting down, or if you've had surgery already to remove them, that would technically qualify you as hypogonadism. So a
Mm.
lot of people are doing that because that is an appropriate indication to getting HRT for cis people. So there's a lot of uh, discussion about using that language for trans people to be able to still get them access. And so while there's some, like technically you could debate those definitions like under whatever laws they're going to try to pass, there are people still in our corner trying to kind of find workarounds for this system because there's so many loopholes here. And so it's not going to be easy. But
Right.
I think they're gonna have to work really hard to actually achieve a blanket ban like that. And I think it's not going to work out in the way that they hope. It's the same thing that's happening with the military system. Like they think that they've gotten rid of all the trans people, but no, I'm seeing groups like I'm part of a group with trans military members, and the route to get people out involuntarily, like they're having a lot of trouble identifying people, and their system is crumbling. Like it doesn't actually work in the way that they think it does. So I do see the fear that people have that they might lose access to this, and especially in red states, this could become a greater fear. Um, so that's why I think it's so important to be fighting for all this now and not let it get to that point. And hopefully it'll be kind of slow and gradual, like Lux was saying, to where we can hopefully put some guardrails in place before it gets there.
There's lots of
Right.
lawsuits.
That's
You know, it's a slow fucking process through the courts. So
that's what I'm hoping, is that just that it's not going to reach that point, or that people are going to see, hey, it's not just going to affect trans people, because I've even talked about like trying to bring it up to my family with how they talk about, oh, well, you know, the bathroom stuff. And I'm like, but people who aren't trans are getting pulled from the bathrooms and assaulted. Like they're getting arrested, or what was it? The two women went into the bathroom. I can't remember what state it was, but they were pulled out of the bathroom just because one of them looked masculine, but it was a cis woman. And like I keep trying to explain it to people. Unfortunately, I do live in it's a very weird section of PA where it's like half of the city is blue, half of the city is red, and I'm over in the red section where it's like right on the edge of, if you drive, you can go to the farmlands kind of thing. So I'm stuck over in the red section. It's a little difficult to like get around in this area, but Lord help me, I'm trying, because like I said, just it's frustrating when I've been dealing with chronic illness and trying to get that under control. And then it's like, you know, I finally wanted to take this leap, and now it's like, oh, they're going after trans people like crazy when it wasn't a big deal, you know, 10 years ago. I mean, people were, of course, you know, had weird biases and stuff, but it's not like it is now. It's like, I remember first learning about trans people, and I was just like, who cares, right? Like, this was before I knew I was trans. I was like, who cares? And now all of a sudden it's like everybody's got to know who's where, what do you have in your pants, what are your chromosomes, and I'm like, what is wrong with y'all? Because nobody was like this before. It's wild.
yeah, people have been whipped up into a frenzy about it. And I mean, yeah, it's like, oh, tell a scary story about the predator in the dark, and whether it's an immigrant or whether it's trans people, like all of those kinds of hatred are being stoked and are in a resurgence right now. And I think until we start to see different behavior modeled in our leadership, we're probably going to continue to struggle with this for quite a while.
Yeah, unfortunately, especially like just they're trying to do anything. Like they just pulled, what was it, like funding for children or something with funding. I can't remember what it was. I just saw it this morning.
I think they were threatening to pull funding from any hospital that provides youth trans care. So it's like functionally meaning that public hospitals cannot accept Medicare or Medicaid if they are providing trans care to youth. But I don't know how much that's actually made any movement, or like what the exact thing is. But yeah, you're correct. They're trying in all kinds of sneaky ways. They're trying to undermine this access to care.
Yeah.
And this is part of why, like, what, you know, it was so frustrating talking to Talia earlier, is like, you know, we do need to be advocating for the actual thing that we want, because we're going to be negotiated down. So like we need to be pushing like you know, there should be no barriers to adults getting this care. You know, we should have reasonable barriers for youth getting this care. It should be well researched and well funded and all this kind of stuff. Because they're, you know, they're not going to want to give us all of that, but we could potentially find like a middle ground on this, and we will not find that unless we keep pushing for it. Like the Democrats, the next time the Democrats are in power, they might be amenable to the utopian version or something close to the utopian version of what we want. And so we have to just keep the pressure on
Right.
in the midterms as it's coming up. Like we can't, it's like, oh, it's not okay that Gavin Newsom has let trans healthcare stuff, you know, degrade in California. We definitely need to be holding these people accountable. That doesn't mean I'm saying don't vote for Gavin Newsom if he ends up being the presidential nominee. I'm just saying like we will not change their minds unless we apply pressure in that way. So it's,
Right.
you know,
Vote in
we're
the
in for the
primary.
long haul.
Vote
Yeah,
in the
vote in the
primaries.
primaries. Vote
Primaries
against
matter
Gavin Newsom
so
in the
much.
primaries. But yeah, it's a marathon, Lee. So I, you know, especially as disabled people, we have to decide where we're going to put our energy. We have to take breaks when we need it. You know, we still have to make money. So if too much of our resources are being put toward the mental energy of fighting this fight, we might have to put that on hold so that we can show up for work and
Right.
be prepared to take a vacation every once in a while and then you jump right back in with your boxing gloves. Like, you know, just got to take the appropriate time to
Right.
you know, regulate your body and everything. So
Yeah, it's a fight, definitely, and I said I appreciate that also there's people like you guys that are like doing this kind of thing, because I don't know if I'd be able to ever do this kind of thing, but I just want to keep trying in my own community, especially now that I'm starting to actually come out of the closet and do what I need to do for myself. But just because I've known so many people and like your show and so many of the line shows and everything have kind of given me hope, because like I hear so many different things, and it's been like an eye opener not only for myself but like the world, and seeing more information, learning more. So it's been a real treat for just everything in general.
yeah. And keep our fingers crossed that things continue to improve. I'm proud of you for focusing on your local community, because I think that's where we should direct most of our energy. So thank you, Lee.
Right. And thank you guys so much for taking my call today. It was awesome the first time, and of course, awesome again. And I said, I know I love the spicy calls when you get spicy calls. I've been listening the whole time. But I've been listening to so many of when you guys talk to other people too, just asking questions or like asking for help as well. And like I said, just it's a highlight of my day, like being able to listen to any and all calls that you guys get, especially around like the religion and transgender stuff. Like those are some of the things that I love listening to. And like I'm losing my words, but you get what I mean. It's just, it means a lot.
We appreciate it, Lee. We do have one last caller we're going to move on to, but I appreciate your call, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again sometime.
Thank you so much for everything.
Happy New Year. Bye-bye.
Happy New Year.
All right. Let's talk to Chad Any All from Arkansas. Sounds like you want to know more about trans people. Identifies as gender fluid. Tell us, what would you like to talk about?
Yes, hello. Yeah, this is Chad. Obviously, I don't sound very feminine, but yes, Lux and Dr. Ben. I know a little bit about the physiology, psychology, and biology of transgender people, but I'm more interested in how they feel, like what it's like, because I live in, well, Arkansas, and it's a very anti-LGBTQ plus place, and I have no resources whatsoever to find any of this out. And I'm also I'm ADHD, and I can be very black and white in my thinking. So I want to know how it feels.
Do you want to start, Ben? I don't know. I have
Yeah,
any good place to start here.
this is very complex. I mean, now currently being trans just feels like normal. But early on, when I was kind of figuring this out, it really was for me just not being a woman. I was like, I didn't know exactly what I was, but I knew I wasn't what I was assigned. And so it took a lot of exploration and just seeing, which things make me feel euphoric or which things make me just feel neutral, and which things make me feel dysphoric. And kind of the more I explored that, I think I went through a phase where I wasn't sure if I was non-binary or if I was a binary trans man. And after exploring that, I arrived at where I am today. But I think there really isn't a way to like feel like a trans person. I think there are certain aspects of your identity and your expression that make you feel along that continuum of euphoric, neutral, dysphoric, and you kind of try things and discover what you like and what you don't like, and that might change over time. And I'd say focus less on the label and more on the individual things. Like, how do I feel when I dress this way? How do I feel with this name, with these pronouns, all of that? And then if you get to a point where a label feels like it fits as a way for you to express yourself to other people, then go for it. Like, the label is more about communicating who you are to somebody else in a concise way. But it doesn't mean you have to feel a certain way or do certain things. So I think just focus on those individual pieces, kind of let your authentic self come out. And then you can kind of choose labels as you would like to use them.
Yeah, I totally co-sign all of that.
I apologize.
I was just going to share a little bit of my experience. It was like, when I was a teenager, I can't even, I think I was getting into my feminism, and I was like, I'm going to listen to the song I Am Woman. And I was like, why am I crying? I do not know why I am crying right now. And like Mulan with the like reflection
Oh my God,
song.
I love Mulan.
Yeah, I know. It's like hard to watch as an adult. I started a whole video essay about it, and I haven't worked on that script in months now. So for me, when I was a teenager, at least, I was like, I don't know what's going on, but it feels weird. I'm crying in ways that I was like, why am I crying listening to I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar? Like, what is it? What is it about this? It's like, because I was going through the transition of like girlhood into the expectation that I was about to start entering womanhood, and I fucking didn't like that at all. So like that's like the place where a lot of trans people start to realize that they're trans, is when they start experiencing friction with the expectations of the gender role that they're supposed to go into according to their assigned sex. And I found that, like my mother was like a pretty masculine woman. Like, she had PCOS. I'm pretty sure she worked like a physical labor job. She was quite muscular. So I felt like I had a good example of like a woman who could embody femininity and masculinity. And so I don't feel like there was any dearth of, I'm not going to call my mother a positive role model, but like there wasn't a dearth of role models of women who could go outside of those gender roles, and yet still the friction. So that's like often a first step. That's kind of why dysphoria, so many people use that as kind of the locus of realizing whether they're trans. But also finding the euphoria in things. Like, have you ever listened to that song that's like, man, I feel like a woman? Like, you can probably explore. Yeah. And you're like, I learned something today. And that's that I want to be, who is that? Is that Shania Twain? So yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So it's about like finding those moments where you're like, ah, shit. Like, I didn't, like this thing is resonating with me that I Like, why does this resonate with me? Or why am I feeling averse to this thing? And that's just the beginning. And then you can start exploring. And like Ben was saying, I do think it's better to focus on specific things. Like, how does painting my nails make me feel? For me, painting my nails often feels like more of a boy gender thing. Like when I see Brian David Gilbert and his painted nails, and like I don't know why, but that's where that fits for me. So yeah, I don't know. It's about finding those individual things. And then if you feel like a certain number of characteristics are clicking under a certain category, like it seems like I'm doing a lot of woman things. Am I okay with people thinking I'm a woman? And then kind of going from there, you know?
Yeah, here's my problem as a gender fluid person, and also I present as extremely masculine, as I'm sure you can tell. But you know, there's days, weeks, months that I feel feminine, and I want to do feminine things, but I can't go out to the local bar or whatever and act feminine. It's like it just wouldn't work. But I would like to explore that part of myself, but frankly I'm afraid to. I mean, I could probably take care of myself, but it's just not a good thing to do in society today, and I just don't know what to do about it. I mean, I am, you know, like I said, gender fluid. In maybe I'm generalizing too much, but I guess it's about as close to transgender as you could be without actually being transgender. But like, I want to be male for a
Have
while, and
you
then I want to be
heard
female
of
for a while.
yeah, that's something that sucks too, is having to like be in tune with yourself and like, do I identify this way or that way on a given day? That's why I identified as genderqueer
Right.
for such a long time, because I was like, I'm gonna take on a label that means behaviorally I can do whatever I want. But I will say, speaking to your anxiety about like presenting in public, did you know that Will Ferrell, like one of his best friends, came out as a trans woman a couple years ago, and they have a documentary
Huh.
on Netflix about it called Will and Harper.
Wow. I
And
need to
part
watch
of the
that.
reason why I'm recommending this is that before she transitioned, Harper was like, I like to just randomly go on road trips across this country and go to shitty dive bars in Iowa and like through the South. And she was like, can I do that still? Is it safe for me to do that now that I'm trans? And so they did this whole road trip across the United States, stopping in places like Indiana and Iowa and Oklahoma, which are often considered like pretty conservative, and going into places
Mm.
like shitty bars in the middle of nowhere, and her coming out and being transgender. And like, obviously, there's a bunch of cameras around, like, there's a camera crew, it's Will Ferrell. Like, so there are things about that that soften the experience that may not be totally
Hmm.
accurate to what a person would experience. But she had lots of very real conversations with people who you would expect to be kind of shitty about this. And it was fine. Like, as far as like what they included in the documentary footage, given that it was like a couple weeks chopped down into like an hour and a half. So I think if you're feeling that hesitancy, that it would be good to get some examples of like, what is it like to actually be trans in a place like shitty Oklahoma dive bar in the middle of winter, you know? So just
Exactly.
to
Exactly.
kind
See,
of
that's
relieve the
my problem.
anxiety.
Like, yeah, I don't know anybody that's trans here, and like even if I did, I don't even know if they would like tell me or come out because it's so oppressive around where I live.
Facebook groups, TBH. I found a
Oh,
lot of trans
okay.
community in Facebook groups. So
What
there's
about
probably
Discord?
something local.
There's probably some discords too. I think a lot of the discords are locked behind some of those other things, like Facebook
Mm.
groups, YouTube channels, etc. So you can probably find them. I would say yes, and do all those things wherever you can find those communities. Go for it. And I know there might not be one in your immediate local area, but if you can drive to a queer establishment like a gay bar or
Mm.
something like that and test drive some stuff there, that also might be a good option as well, but I
Yeah,
don't
my
know
other issue
how
is,
far away
I'm
that would
sorry
be
about
from
that.
you.
Sorry, my other issue is that I'm disabled and I don't have a vehicle, and it's really hard to
Oh,
get
okay.
around here
Yeah.
because they don't have public transport at all.
Mm. Yeah, so online's probably your best bet, and maybe
Yeah.
through some of those groups, you can meet some people in your area that maybe you wouldn't have known otherwise, and maybe that can kind of branch out from there. So
Yeah, I would like to have a community that would accept me and I can be myself around them, whether it be male, female, whatever. You know, I kind of play with the idea of being non-binary, but I don't know. I don't think I am. But the gender fluid works. I'm also, well, what is it? Omnisexual. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Um,
I will say people
like,
will surprise you. I think that's the number one thing to take away is like people will surprise you. People will be more chill than you think. So long as you're respectful, a lot of the times people will be respectful to you. Um, if you just say like, "Hey, I'm just, okay, pick a night where it's easy, like Halloween or something else." It's like, I'm just gonna go out and be myself on this holiday where it's kind of understood that people are gonna dress weird or whatever. Obviously that's
yeah,
kind of a
because
long
I would
wait,
definitely
but
love to dress up, feminine, like, dresses, stuff like that. But I can't
yeah.
do that around here. you know?
I, can you not? I mean, you don't know until you try. Like paint, just do
True,
one thing.
true.
Paint your fingernails. Just do one thing
Oh,
and try
there
it
we
out.
go.
And if nobody bothers you about it, then you can take another little baby step. Maybe we're gonna wear a scarf that's a little bit feminine next time, So I would say don't let that feeling of hesitancy get completely in the way of people will surprise you. Sometimes people will be very chill. And if someone's an asshole, then the person who's chill is gonna tell that person off, that there will be people in your corner.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. But we are running to the end of the show and we got to do some super chats before I go on calling it now. So if you want to give any last remarks, Chad, before we skedaddle.
No, just thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me and to learn more about, how it feels to be in the LGBTQ plus community.
Heck yeah. We appreciate you, Chad. Good luck out there. Happy New Year.
Thank you for your call.
Y'all too.
Bye. All right.
Okay.
Jumping right into super chats.
Don't forget, $5 or more, you can vote. Hashtag Team Lux, hashtag Team Ben. What's the vote right now? The loser is going to have to defend the position. The bottoms should be a protected class. Yeah.
Yep. Looks like that's the position. All right. I'll take this first one. 10 Australian from Steph Kukla. A8533 just wondered if Rose Montoya has ever co-hosted TACIS, and if not, has they ever been invited?
I followed her on Instagram. I don't know if she's ever done any debates before. So when we invite people on, that's part of it, is like, have they done debate before? I don't think she has, but I'll be checking out her social media. Five from Mystic Mind Analysis says, do you have hours of your life just waiting to be filled? Watch One Piece, the queer revolutionary anime. Hashtag trans rights and wrongs forever. That's a trans wrong if I ever heard one.
Yeah.
Refuse.
I don't have a whole lot of opinions on this one. $5 from William Matz 1991. I found the best response for a friend jokingly telling me to suck it. Give me one worth sucking, LOL. Hashtag Team Lux. Hashtag MB Pels Unite. There you go.
That's
First
quite
point
funny.
on the board.
Thank you for the very generous 50 from Palfly, who says, thanks TACIS and specifically Lux for cracking my non-binary egg last year. Not officially out to my family, but there's been some NBs at family stuff and everyone has been chill. Also letting my hair grow, giving lots of euphoria. So yay, hashtag Team Lux. That's very generous of your donation.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. And congratulations.
$5 from Joshua Everett. Diagramming one of Joe's crazy run-ons would be an all-day affair and require at least 40 commas. Even his complaints were overly wordy. Yeah, for sure. And I don't think he stopped talking after we muted him, so.
Yeah. I don't like it when people are like, well, stop interrupting me, and then they interrupt me and I've gotten only half a sentence out. Like, I will find you and erupt from your walls. Thank you for 10 from Barbara Barrett, who says, I was advocating trans rights on local TV and TV radio and writing opinion pieces for the Telegraph and newsletter in the 1980s. This is not new. Your ignorance is not equal to the host's knowledge. True. That I was going to scream.
Yeah. Another 5 from Joshua Everett. First lesson of allyship, shut up and learn to listen. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. $5 from Brian says, Team Dr. Ben, no hashtag, no vote. Yeah.
Yeah. So sad.
So sad.
Thank you for the super chat.
Thank you very much.
£5 from Herbie Shine. I wanted to thank Lux for what they said to and about Andrew in New Jersey a few days ago. It was a beautiful and important thing to witness. All hail Luxander.
Again, I find it very funny I'm getting all the credit for this when it was literally like a couple months of the hosts all being like, do we have to? And me being like, yes, we have to talk to Andrew. So I'm glad that I get all this credit for finally being the one who decided we're not taking his calls anymore. Thank you for the $5 from Green Garbador, who says, if it wasn't for confrontational shows like this, I would have never reflected on my own beliefs about politics, religion, and gender. Thank you. See? More anecdata for my position.
Anecdata. I love that.
Yeah.
£5 from Barbara Barrett. Telling an oppressed group you're doing it wrong and is in and of itself an act of oppression. Hashtag Team Lux. Yeah.
True. Thank you for the very generous $100 from Bobtailed Trucker, who said donations are another option. That's true. That's definitely an option to support the show.
Yes.
And we appreciate it very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. $4.99 from Kiko73 wanted to recommend the one key Gantatum. He goes over studies over the studies psychology of politics. Love you guys and happy new year. Thank you for the recommendation. Sorry if I cannot pronounce that person's name.
I'm gonna forget, but thank you anyway. Thank you. Oh my gosh, so generous. A $5 donation from Sydney Davis Jr., who we had recently on Cus I Wanna, and I thought she was really funny. She says, Dr. Ben is one of my favorite people. Yeah, she's great. I love her expressive face. Yeah. It's wonderful. Dr. Ben is one of my favorite people on the internet and an asset to the fight against fascists / bigots. Lux is an absolute friggin' legend. Hashtag Banthony. Was that another caller that we had recently? God.
I think that's for me. I guess I'm Banthony now.
Okay.
People like to give me weird names. No, but Sydney, something else that Sydney did recently, she made me do stand-up comedy at NanoCon, and I did it, and now I've been working on more stand-up, so that's all her fault. So
hell yeah, dude.
£5 from Barbara Barrett. If a trans woman who doesn't pass well goes into a gendered space and someone freaks out, then the problem is the freaker, not the trans woman. Yeah, that call was ridiculous.
Yeah, I found that really frustrating. Thank you for the $5 from Mira G, who says, if only Atalia weren't turfing so hard, truly. Again, I understand where it's coming from. You desperately want to exert control over a situation you have no control over, but you're like blaming people on your own side, and it's just not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah.
I also like that she threw her hands up in the conversation the first time a curse word was dropped. It was when Lux said, like, I'm so fucking something. And then she was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. That was crossing the line. Oh no, naughty word was said.
Yeah. And the typical crying about being interrupted, like, yeah, it was silly. There's a bingo, and those are on the bingo card.
Yeah. $5 from LWise13. I love both hosts, but Lux was cooking Talia. Hashtag Team Lux. I got no votes so far. But in all fairness, like I've come from behind from like the past few times I was on, so It's okay to
You're
lose
a
sometimes,
so
and we're
I'm
not
not
even
gonna
at the
make
end
the joke that I could make there. Thank you for the 10 Canadian from Andarius Rosethorn, who says, on the bathroom debate, it's unenforceable unless we either want to allow additional government presence, like literal bathroom police, or vigilante enforcement. It's absurd on its face. Yeah, we have either bounties or like in the government building in Texas, they were like, we're going to start checking IDs, but they're only selectively checking the IDs of certain people. So it's all wishy-washy and like
It was
based
only
on
the
vibes.
trans women at that action. They didn't check any of the trans men.
Yeah, and even among the trans women, they were only checking certain ones. So it's so fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Thank you for
$10
$10
from
from
Brian
oh,
Printy. Was
I don't
it
remember whose
me or
turn it
you?
is.
I
I
don't
don't know.
know. Dr. Ben, I wish you'd write a book someday. Your journey is singularly empowering for certain loved ones in my circle. Thank you so much. I know Brian left another comment later on with a hashtag, but like you're given two now without a hashtag. I feel bad.
So
But
sad.
thank you for the contribution.
Thank you for $5 from Eliana Langton, who says, I'm moving to Oregon in 14 days. I lost my trans care via USPS for 2026. I don't know what to do really, but I'm hoping in Oregon I'll be able to get care. Yeah, I will say if you're still working with USPS, you will definitely be making enough money to be able to afford it. And in Oregon, it's not legal to deny a gender affirming care. So, worst case scenario, you can buy marketplace insurance. And welcome to West Coast, Best Coast.
$5 from William Matz, 1991. Dr. Ben, I have been formally documented with hypogonadism. What are my HRT options at the moment? Hashtag Dr. Ben, because he's being asked. Hashtag asexuals united. I mean, I don't know your specific options because I don't know your full medical history. You need to talk with your provider on that. But usually that will buy you some points for getting options. Sorry, I couldn't be more helpful.
Dr. Ben is a doctor. He's not your doctor.
Yeah.
Thank you for the $5 from Robin Wood, who says, pretty sure this is my first ever super chat. Thought it would be fitting to support the show that helped me find my gender. Hashtag Team Ben. Hashtag bottom rights. Hell yeah. Proud of you.
Bottom rights. $5 from William Matz. Chad, Little Rock, Conway, Eureka Springs, Hot Springs, and Fayetteville are all the places I know of. Eureka Springs is very LGBTQIA plus friendly. Good to know.
Hell yeah. Thank you for $5 from Joshua Everett, who says, good to hear from Chad today. Hashtag Team Lux today. Thank you very much.
$10 from Paul. Hashtag Team Lux. There you go. Lux taking a very big lead.
Yeah, I feel like I was around less in December, so I'm catching up on the points a little bit. Thank you for $5 from Sapphic Hazard, who says the queer revolutionary anime is Revolutionary Girl Utena. It's right there in the name. Hashtag Team Ben. Sailor Moon gets partial credit too. Fair enough.
$10 from Brian Printy. Hashtag Dr. Ben. Thank you so much. We got to the hashtag.
Yeah. Thank you for $5 from YouTuber Grudge, who says being small, meek, and out of the way isn't how you get change done, no matter what they tell you. Hashtag Dr. Ben, hashtag Team Mask, hashtag no pick me. Yes, it's like this idea that if you just do everything right, then bad things won't happen to you. And like, I'm sorry, that's just not how it works.
$10 from Brian Printy. Another at Team Ben finally got it right. Yeah, you got it right in the previous one and then didn't vote this up. I guess maybe the intention was to only give one vote. I mean, you do you.
Possibly. Thank you for the 10 Australian from Phil, who said, in my personal canon, Lux is a hunter in a Ghibli movie, and that's a Totoro skin hanging on its wall under the calendar. Those are foxtails and a bobcat tail. And there's a bobcat skull. I got spooky ookies in the background.
Spooky. $5 from Shadow Haven on the they it team, and I love being there. So awesome to see more with Lux and it having similar pronouns. And hashtag Team Ben needs some votes. Thank you for the votes and the compliments to Lux.
That is the end, and Lux wins by 1 point. So let me get our arena ready to go.
All
Host
right.
right is the loser, and host left is our winner.
For once, I don't
This
lose.
is good, so that Lux can rest its voice before the next show.
All
So
right. This is charging up
you
the
get a little
clock for you,
little
Dr. Ben. In 3,
All
2,
right.
1, go.
All right, so we know that there is discrimination in society, and a lot of different people get discriminated against. But one that we don't think about as much are the bottoms. And I know that there's a variety of people who can be bottoms. I think most of the time people think of submissive bottoms, but you can have dominant bottoms. That's totally okay too. But for those people, especially the ones who are submissive bottoms, like they need some more advocacy in our community, and especially they should be a protected class. And actually, this argument isn't super hard to make because we're talking largely queer people, largely like gay men who are very openly bottoms on the internet. You know, everyone's got their favorite YouTuber that you're like, I know this person's a bottom, and you love them for it. But at the same time, they get a lot of shit from cishet men, of course, because everybody does. And so anybody who is like, especially I hadn't even thought about Andrew Tate at this point. Andrew Tate, of course, says all kinds of things that might make you a bottom, right? Like apparently wiping your ass makes you gay and probably a bottom in that sense. So I guess there are a lot more people that need to be included in this protected class of bottom. But I mean, that whole point is that there's oppression by cishet men, and bottoms are not immune from this. And in fact, they take a lot of crap, and we need to give them some respect. So we should make them a protected class, and we should just give them money. Just give them free money. Bottoms should get money from the government. I think Trump specifically should pay every bottom in the United States, and they should get a check that says from Donald Trump to the bottoms. And yeah,
True.
That's my speech.
Yes, incontrovertible. We sped through the super chats, and now we have 3 minutes to kill because immediately after the show, we're doing Calling It Now with me and Jimmy. Let me go find out what the title is because I want to know what we're yelling at people for today. What are we yelling for? Oh, I did see Fire and Ash, Avatar Fire and Ash, and I thought it was okay. I thought it was a pretty good movie, actually. So come at me about that. The title is Debating MAGA and Trump Voters. So that's what we're going to be there for. We're going to be there to yell at people about Christian nationalism. I'm sure that we'll talk about trans issues and stuff too, but it's nice. I like just to be able to yell about like more general politics issues, even though I desperately don't want to be paying attention to that stuff most of the time. Got to get it in little doses.
Matt Daniels real in chat says Andrew Tate is the example of real men. You should call the next show.
You should definitely call on Jimmy Snow and The Line. Yeah, just stick around for another 2 minutes. We'll send you there automatically. I also saw Arden saying like, let no bottom go without a top. So like government mandated tops for all bottoms.
That's right.
I keep hearing about an alleged top shortage. So, you know, the trans loneliness epidemic, we need to we need to help these poor bottoms.
They need some help, yeah, and some money. Just give them money. But yeah, it's wild. Like there's so, I mean, the world, especially this country, have gone to shit. I mean, they've been shit for a while, but they're extra shit now. And so at least like a positive is that we will never run out of content. Like we will never run out of people to argue with. We'll never run out of topics to vamp about. Like there's always something to address because it never stops. And in fact, it's very overwhelming sometimes with how much there is out there to debunk. So definitely, if you're one of those people in the side chat starting shit, call into the next show. And if you want to help us out some more, join these lovely patrons on the side of the screen. They're super, super cool. You should be one of them.
Get special perks like a coupon in the merch store and access to our secret The Line Con talks. We'll see you there.
Yes.